My daughter-in-law dropped my granddaughter off at my house saying she had a hair appointment and would be back in 2 hours. That appointment lasted 6 years. I raised that little girl on a pension and a prayer while her mother vanished into thin air. But last week news broke that the tech stock my late son invested in a decade ago had skyrocketed to $12 million. Suddenly the mother of the year returned. She didn't come with a hug or an apology. She came with the police accusing me of kidnapping the child she abandoned. She thought she was crushing a helpless old man. She didn't know I had been documenting her life for 6 years waiting for this exact moment. When I handed the judge the envelope, his face went pale. He looked at her and asked, "Does she know?" I replied, "Not yet." Before I tell you how I turned the hunter into the prey, please like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments where you are listening from. I want to know how far this story of justice travels. My name is Silas. I am 69 years old, a retired structural engineer who spent 40 years building bridges that connect cities across Georgia. I know about load-bearing walls. I know exactly how much pressure a structure can take before it collapses. But nothing prepared me for the pressure that hit my front door at 6 in the morning on a Sunday. It wasn't a knock. It was the assault. The wood of my front door groaned under the force of a fist pounding like a sledgehammer. The entire frame shook, sending dust motes dancing in the slivers of morning light. I was in the kitchen pouring my first cup of black coffee, enjoying the silence before my 7-year-old granddaughter Maya woke up. The violence of that sound shattered the peace instantly. I moved to the door, my joints protesting with the morning stiffness. I did not open it immediately. I looked through the peephole. All I saw was blue. Uniforms. Badges. And behind them, a flash of blonde hair that I hadn't seen in 6 years but would recognize in hell. "Open the door, or we will kick it in," a voice bellowed. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door slowly, keeping my hands visible. I know the rules. A black man in America, even a near 70-year-old homeowner in a quiet Atlanta suburb, does not make sudden movements when the police are at his door. As the door swung open, I was met with the barrel of a service weapon pointed directly at my chest. The officer was young white, his eyes wide with adrenaline, his finger hovering near the trigger. "Step back," he shouted. "Hands where I can see them." Behind him, putting on the performance of a lifetime, was Courtney. She looked different than the last time I saw her. The cheap clothes were gone, replaced by a designer coat and oversized sunglasses. But the rot underneath was the same. She was screaming, her face contorted in a mask of theatrical agony. "That is him," she wailed, pointing a manicured finger at me. "That is the man who stole my baby. He has been keeping her from me. Please, officer, save my daughter." Confusion washed over me, cold and sharp. Stole her. She left Maya here in a car seat with a diaper bag and a promise to return by noon. That was 6 years ago. My son Trey was already dead, then killed in a site accident 3 months prior. Courtney had looked at that baby not with love, but with resentment, seeing her as a shackle. She walked out that door and never looked back. Until today. I raised my hands slowly, my palms open. "Officers," I said, my voice calm, contrasting the chaos on my porch. "There is a misunderstanding. This woman left this child here 6 years ago." "Don't you lie to them!" Courtney shrieked, lunging forward as if she wanted to claw my eyes out, only to be held back by a second officer. "He threatened me. He said he would kill me if I ever tried to come back. He is crazy. He is violent. Look at him." Neighbors were starting to come out onto their porches. Mrs. Gable across the street pulling her robe tight. Mr. Henderson putting down his newspaper. They watched as I, Silas, the man who fixed their fences and shared his garden vegetables, was held at gunpoint like a criminal. Suddenly, a small cry pierced the tension. Maya. She was standing at the top of the stairs in her dinosaur pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She looked at the police, then at the screaming woman, and finally at me. Terror seized her small face. "Grandpa," she whimpered. Courtney didn't miss a beat. She pushed past the officer on the porch, running into my house with her boots tracking mud on my hardwood floors. "Maya, baby mommy is here!" she cried out, reaching for the girl. Maya screamed. It was a primal sound of pure fear. She didn't know this woman. To Maya, Courtney was a stranger invading our sanctuary. She scrambled backward, tripping over her own feet, scrambling to get behind my legs. She wrapped her little arms around my thigh, burying her face in my trousers. "Get away," she screamed. "Grandpa, make her go away." The young officer with the gun finally lowered it slightly, but his hand stayed on the grip. He looked at the hysterical white woman, then at the black man standing stoically with a terrified child clinging to him. I could see the bias working in his mind, the narrative Courtney had spun taking root. "Sir, do you have custody papers for this child?" the officer asked, his voice hard. I looked him in the eye. "My son died. She left. There was no court. There was no paper. Just life happening. I have her birth certificate. I have her school records. I have every doctor's note for the last 6 years." "That is not what I asked," he snapped. "Do you have a court order granting you legal guardianship over the mother?" "No," I said, the word tasting like ash. "Because she abandoned her. You cannot get signatures from a ghost." "See?" Courtney yelled, triumph flashing in her teary eyes. "He admits it. He kidnapped her. I have my rights. I am her mother. It is on her birth certificate. I want my daughter now." The officer stepped into my foyer. He loomed over me. "Sir, without a court order stripping the mother of her rights, the child goes with her. You are interfering with parental custody. Step aside or I will arrest you for kidnapping." The injustice of it burned in my throat. I looked down at Maya. She was trembling so hard it shook my own leg. She was looking up at me, her brown eyes pleading, trusting me to be the wall that protected her from the world. And for the first time in her life, I had to fail her. If I fought them, they would arrest me. They might hurt me. And then Maya would be truly alone with this woman. I had to play the long game. I had to be the steel beam that bends but does not break. "Maya, honey," I said, my voice cracking just a fraction. "It is going to be okay. No, Grandpa, no," she sobbed, tightening her grip. The officer reached down and peeled her little fingers off my leg. She kicked and screamed, flailing in the air as he lifted her. Courtney grabbed her from the officer. She didn't hold her like a mother holds a child. She held her like a thief holds a prize. Maya was shrieking, reaching her hand out toward me, her fingers grasping at the air between us. "Grandpa, Grandpa, help me." Courtney turned to me, her face close to mine. The sobbing act dropped for just a second, revealing the predator beneath. "You should have died like your son, old man," she hissed low enough that the cops couldn't hear. She turned and marched out the door. I followed them to the porch, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I watched as they shoved my screaming granddaughter into the back of a black luxury SUV that cost more than my house. The police officer turned to me one last time. "Consider yourself lucky we are not taking you downtown today," he warned. "If you go near them, if you try to contact them, we will file charges. Stay away." They got into their patrol cars. The convoy pulled away. I stood on my porch, the morning sun just breaking over the tree line, illuminating the empty street. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. It was the silence of a house that had lost its soul. Mrs. Gable from across the street was staring, her hand over her mouth. I didn't acknowledge her. I didn't look at anyone. I turned around and walked back into my house, closing the door with a soft click. I stood in the hallway. Maya's dinosaur slipper had fallen off in the struggle. It lay on the floor, small and lonely. I picked it up. I held it to my chest, and I felt a rage so cold, so deep, it felt like my blood had turned to liquid nitrogen. I did not cry. Crying is for the helpless. I am not helpless. I am a structural engineer. I know how to find the weak point in any foundation and bring the whole thing down. I walked to the kitchen. I moved the heavy oak table. I pulled back the rug. There in the floorboards was a loose panel that only I knew about. I pried it open. Inside was a fireproof box. I unlocked it. Inside were stacks of documents, hard drives, and a burner phone I kept for emergencies. Courtney thought she had won. She thought she had snatched a defenseless child from a poor, lonely old man. She thought she was taking home a payday. She didn't know she had just declared war on a man who had nothing left to lose. I picked up the phone. It was an old model Buttons no touchscreen battery that lasted a week. I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. It rang twice. "Caldwell," I said when the line clicked open. Silas, the voice on the other end, was raspy, the voice of a man who smoked too much and slept too little. "It is Sunday morning. This better be good." "It is," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "Activate file number 7. The snake has returned to the nest. There was a pause on the line, then the sound of a lighter flicking and a deep exhale. "So it begins," Caldwell said. "Does she have the girl?" "Yes," I replied. "Then God help her," Caldwell said. "I will meet you at the safe house in an hour. Bring the ledger." I hung up the phone. I looked around my empty house. It felt cold without Maya's laughter, but the cold was good. The cold kept me sharp. Courtney wanted to fight. She wanted to play the victim. She wanted to use the system against me. She had no idea that for the last 6 years while she was partying in whatever hole she crawled out of, I wasn't just changing diapers and packing school lunches. I was watching. I was recording. I was preparing. I put the slipper in my pocket. I grabbed the box. I walked out the back door into the gray morning. Courtney had taken my heart. Now, I was going to take her life apart piece by piece until there was nothing left but dust. The game had just begun. The silence that followed the slamming of the door was heavier than any concrete slab I ever lifted in my 40 years of construction. It pressed against my eardrums a physical weight that made the air in the living room feel thin and stale. Just 10 minutes ago, the house had been filled with the smell of toast and the sound of morning cartoons. Now there was only the hum of the refrigerator and the echo of my granddaughter screaming for me. I stood there in the hallway, my hand still gripping the rough fabric of my trousers where she had clung to me. Most men in my position would have collapsed. They would have fallen to their knees and wept at the injustice of the world. They would have called a neighbor or poured a drink. But I am not most men. I am a structural engineer. I know that when a load exceeds the capacity of a beam, you do not cry about the weight. You reinforce the foundation. I walked to the kitchen, my steps slow and deliberate on the hardwood floors I had laid myself 20 years ago. I pushed the heavy oak table aside with a grunt of effort. It scraped loudly against the wood, a harsh sound in the quiet house. I rolled back the faded Persian rug that Courtney used to turn her nose up at. Beneath it lay the original floorboards, stained a deep mahogany. To the naked eye, they were seamless, but I knew where to press. I knelt, my knees cracking, and pushed down on the edge of the third board from the wall. It popped up with a soft click. Beneath the floor was a fireproof safe embedded directly into the foundation of the house. I spun the dial. Left to 24, right to 10, left to 55, the date I finished my first bridge. The lock engaged with a heavy thud, and I lifted the lid. Inside was not the stash of a poor retired laborer living on Social Security. Inside were stacks of high-grade bonds deeds to 3 commercial properties in downtown Atlanta that I had bought for pennies in the 90s and renovated with my own hands, and a ledger. This ledger contained the details of every dollar I had made, every dollar I had saved, and every dollar my son Trey had entrusted to me before his accident. I ran my fingers over the papers. Courtney saw a man who wore flannel shirts and drove a 15-year-old truck. She saw a man who clipped coupons and fixed his own plumbing. She saw a mark. She didn't know that I lived this way because I chose to, not because I had to. I wanted Maya to understand the value of a dollar, the dignity of labor, the strength of living below your means. I wanted to protect her from the rot that money brings to weak souls, the same rot that had clearly consumed her mother. I took out the burner phone I kept in the box and a thick envelope marked File Number 7. I sat on the floor, the cold wood seeping into my bones, and waited. I didn't have to wait long. The phone in my pocket buzzed, vibrating against my leg like an angry hornet. It wasn't the burner phone. It was my landline. I let it ring 3 times before picking it up. It was Caldwell. Silas. His voice was gravel and smoke, the voice of a man who had seen every ugly side of the law. "You need to turn on the news. Channel 5, business segment." I didn't ask questions. I grabbed the remote and flicked on the small television on the kitchen counter. The screen flickered to life, showing 2 anchors with bright smiles and brighter teeth discussing the morning stock reports. "What am I looking at, Caldwell?" I asked, my eyes scanning the ticker at the bottom of the screen. "Wait for it," he said. And then I saw it. The headline flashed across the screen in bold red letters. Tech giant Helios Systems announces acquisition of early crypto holdings. The anchor began speaking, her voice breathless with excitement. In a stunning turn of events, shares of the dormant tech firm Helios Systems have skyrocketed over 4,000% this morning after it was revealed they hold a massive reserve of early cryptocurrency assets. Early investors who bought in 10 years ago are waking up as multi-millionaires today. I froze. The name Helios Systems hit me like a physical blow. I remembered the night Trey came to me 10 years ago, his eyes shining with excitement. He had put $5,000 into a small, unknown tech startup. He said it was the future. He said he wanted to build something for his family, something that didn't involve breaking his back on a construction site like his father. I had told him to be careful. I had told him the market was a gamble, but he had been so sure. He had put the certificates in my name for safekeeping, saying he didn't trust himself not to sell if things got tight. "Silas, are you there?" Caldwell's voice cut through the fog in my brain. "I am here," I whispered. "Trey's shares," Caldwell said, his voice dropping to a low rumble. I ran the numbers, Silas. Based on this morning's valuation, that portfolio is worth $12 million. $12 million. The number didn't make sense. It was too big. It was abstract. It was enough to buy this entire neighborhood 10 times over. And then the realization hit me with the force of a freight train. "That is why she came back," I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of rage and clarity. "She knows," Caldwell confirmed. "The shareholder list would have been made public during the acquisition audit. Your name is on the trust, but Trey is listed as the primary beneficiary's father. Since he is gone and she is the surviving mother of his child, she thinks she has a claim." "She doesn't care about Maya," I said, the words tasting like bile. "She didn't come for her daughter. She came for the payout. She thinks if she has the girl, she controls the estate," Caldwell said. "She thinks you are just the old grandfather standing in the way of her lottery ticket. She has no idea the trust is locked down under your sole discretion until Maya turns 25. She thinks I am broke, Caldwell. She thinks I am a senile old man living on a pension." "Then use that," Caldwell said sharply. "Let her believe it. If she knows you are the gatekeeper to $12 million, she will play nice. If she thinks you are just a hurdle, she will get careless. She will show you exactly who she is. And when she does, we will bury her with it." I looked at the picture of Trey on the mantel. He was smiling, his arm around a pregnant Courtney, unaware that the woman next to him would one day sell their child for a bank balance. "I will play her game," I said. "Good," Caldwell replied. "I am preparing the custody filings now, but Silas, be careful. For $12 million, people have killed for much less." I hung up the phone. The silence returned, but now it was different. It wasn't the silence of loss. It was the silence of the hunt. I knew why she was here. I knew what she wanted, and I knew exactly how to destroy her. The phone rang again almost immediately. This time I knew who it was before I even looked at the caller ID. I took a deep breath, letting my shoulders slump, letting the strength drain from my voice. I needed to sound weak. I needed to sound defeated. I picked up the receiver. "Hello," I said, my voice shaking just enough. "Listen to me very carefully, old man." Courtney's voice came through the line like ice water. The hysterical crying mother from the front porch was gone. In her place was the cold, hard steel of a woman who smelled money. "Courtney." "Please," I stammered, leaning against the counter. "Maya needs her medicine. She has allergies. You don't know what she needs." "Shut up," she snapped. "I don't care about her allergies. I care about what is rightfully mine. I know about the stocks, Silas. I know Trey left money, and I know you have the paperwork. I don't know what you are talking about." I lied, injecting a note of confusion into my voice. "Trey didn't have any money. He was a construction worker." "Don't play dumb with me," she hissed. "I saw the news. I saw the shareholder list. $12 million, Silas. That belongs to my daughter, and since I am her mother, it belongs to me. Courtney, please, I just want to see my granddaughter. She is all I have. You want to see her?" She laughed, a cruel, sharp sound. "Here is how this is going to work. You are going to sign over control of the estate to me. You are going to step aside. If you do that, maybe I will let you visit her on Christmas. Maybe I will even give you a little allowance. How does $500 a month sound? That should cover your pills and your heating bill. $500. She was offering me crumbs from the feast my son had provided, threatening me with the child she had abandoned. "And if I don't?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "If you don't," she said, her voice dropping to a menacing purr, "then I will have you declared incompetent. I will tell the court you are senile. I will tell them you are unfit. I will put you in the cheapest, nastiest state-run nursing home I can find, and you will never see Maya again. You will die alone in a room that smells like urine and bleach, Silas. Do you understand me?" The rage inside me was a white-hot fire, but I forced it down. I forced myself to sound small. I forced myself to sound broken. Please don't do that, I begged. I can't go to a home. I will do whatever you want. Just let me see her. That is better, she said, her tone dripping with satisfaction. Meet me at Le Bernardin at noon. It is in the city. Wear something nice, Silas. Try not to embarrass me, and bring the safe deposit box key. I know you have it. Yes, I said. Yes, okay, I will be there. She hung up without another word. The line went dead. I stood there for a moment listening to the dial tone. Slowly, I lowered the phone to the cradle. I straightened my back. The old man posture vanished. The trembling hands steadied. She wanted the key. She wanted the control. She wanted to show me her power. I walked back to the hole in the floor. I reached into the box and pulled out a single silver key. It was the key to a safety deposit box, but not the one she thought. This key opened a box that contained nothing but a single envelope. The envelope I had prepared 6 years ago, the day she drove away. She wanted to meet at Le Bernardin, a place where a salad cost more than my weekly grocery bill, a place where she could flaunt her victory. I went to my closet. I pushed aside the flannel shirts and the denim work pants. In the back, covered in plastic, was a charcoal gray suit, Italian wool, tailored. I hadn't worn it since Trey's funeral. I pulled it out. I dressed slowly, methodically. I tied my tie with a perfect Windsor knot. I put on my watch, a vintage piece that looked simple but was worth a small fortune. I looked in the mirror. The man staring back wasn't a victim. He wasn't a senile grandfather. He was a general preparing for battle. I grabbed the key, I grabbed the burner phone, and I grabbed a small digital voice recorder that fit perfectly in my jacket pocket. "You want to play games, Courtney?" I whispered to the empty room. "Let's play." I walked out the door, locking it behind me. The sun was high in the sky now, burning off the morning mist. I didn't take my old truck. I called a car service. When the black sedan pulled up, I slid into the back seat. "Where to, sir?" the driver asked. "Le Bernardin," I said. "And step on it. I have a business transaction to conclude." As the car pulled away, I touched the recorder in my pocket. Courtney thought she was walking into a coronation. She had no idea she was walking into an execution, and I was going to enjoy every single second of it. The air inside Le Bernardin was cold enough to preserve meat. It smelled of truffles, old money, and the specific kind of quiet desperation that comes from people trying too hard to prove they belong. I walked through the heavy glass doors, my Italian wool suit feeling like armor against the chill. It was a charcoal gray masterpiece I had bought in Rome 20 years ago, tailored to within a millimeter of my life. To a man who knows quality, it was timeless. To the two sharks waiting for me at table 4, it probably looked like a costume from a history museum. The hostess, a young woman with a clipboard and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, looked me up and down. She saw a 69-year-old black man with calloused hands and gray hair standing alone in a lobby designed for hedge fund managers and tech moguls. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, her tone suggesting the service entrance was around the back. "I am meeting a party," I said, my voice low and steady. "The name is Vance." Her eyebrows shot up, but she led me through the dining room. I felt the eyes of the patrons on me. I kept my head high, my gait measured. I walked like I owned the concrete under the foundation because in 3 of the buildings on this block, I literally did. I saw them before they saw me. Courtney was sitting with her back to the window, the light catching the diamond tennis bracelet she hadn't owned 6 years ago. Next to her was a man who could only be Chad. He was younger than her, wearing a suit that was too blue and a watch that was too big. He had the hungry, restless energy of a lawyer who chases ambulances when he isn't chasing widows. Courtney looked up as I approached. Her lip curled in a sneer that she tried to disguise as a smile. "Silas," she said, not bothering to stand. "You made it. And look at you. You dressed up. That is adorable. Is that the suit you wore to Trey's funeral? It smells like mothballs in poverty." Chad snickered, taking a sip of his sparkling water. He didn't offer his hand. He just stared at me with dead shark eyes. "Sit down, old-timer," Chad said, gesturing to the empty chair. "Try not to touch anything breakable. This place charges for accidents." I sat. The chair was velvet soft and expensive. I placed my hands on the white tablecloth, letting them see the rough knuckles, the scars from years of welding and hammering. I saw Chad's eyes flick to my wrist, looking for a watch, judging my worth. I had left my vintage Patek Philippe at home. Today I wore nothing on my wrist but bare skin. Let them think I pawned it. "We are not here to eat," Silas, Courtney said, cutting straight to the bone. "We are here to sign." Chad reached into a leather briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents thick enough to choke a horse. He slammed them onto the table, rattling the silverware. Transfer of guardianship and asset control. Chad announced, tapping the cover page. It is standard stuff. You sign over full legal custody of Maya to her biological mother. You also sign over executorship of your son's estate, granting Courtney full power of attorney to manage the assets for the benefit of the child. I looked at the papers. The text was dense, single-spaced legalese designed to confuse and intimidate. "And what happens to me?" I asked, keeping my voice trembling just enough to sell the act. Courtney sighed, rolling her eyes. "We told you, Silas. If you sign, we won't put you in a home. We will set up a stipend, $500 a month. You can stay in your little house until you die, or until you become too much of a burden. Then we will move you to a facility of our choosing, but you will get to see Maya once a month. Supervised." "Supervised," I repeated. "By who?" "By me," Chad said, flashing a grin that showed too many teeth. "I am going to be the new father figure in her life. She needs a strong male influence, not a confused old man who thinks he is a structural engineer." The rage flared in my gut, hot and corrosive, but I swallowed it down. I reached into my jacket pocket, my hand shaking with feigned infirmity. I pulled out a pair of drugstore reading glasses, the kind with the thick plastic frames. I put them on, squinting exaggeratedly at the documents. "I cannot read this," I said, pushing the papers away slightly. "The print is too small. My eyes. They are not what they used to be. The cataracts, you know." Courtney groaned, a sound of pure exasperation. "Oh my God, just sign the damn papers, Silas." "We don't have all day. I have a spa appointment at 2. I need to know what I am signing." I insisted, my voice rising in a pitch of old man panic. "I promised Trey I would protect his legacy. I need to hear it." Chad let out a harsh breath, loosening his tie. "Fine," he snapped. "I will read the key points. But pay attention, Grandpa. I am not reading it twice." As Chad began to drone on about irrevocable trusts and liquidation rights, I slid my hand into my other pocket. My fingers found the small, cold metal of the digital recorder. I pressed the record button. The tiny red light would be hidden inside the fabric. "Read the part about the money," I said, interrupting him. "The $12 million. What happens to it?" Chad stopped reading. He looked at Courtney. She leaned forward, her face transforming into a mask of pure greed. "It goes into an investment fund, Silas," she said slowly, as if talking to a toddler. "Managed by Chad and me." "And Maya?" I asked. "Does she get the money?" Courtney laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Maya is 7. Silas, she doesn't need $12 million. She needs clothes, she needs private school, she needs a house suitable for an heiress. We are going to use the money to build a life for her." "You mean a life for you," I said softly. "Does it matter?" Courtney snapped, her patience finally snapping like a dry twig. "Look, Silas, let's cut the act. Trey got lucky. He was a construction worker who bought the right lottery ticket 10 years ago. He didn't earn that money. He stumbled into it. And he is dead. He is worm food. That money is wasted sitting in a trust for a kid who thinks chocolate milk is a luxury." I felt the recorder burning in my pocket. This was it. This was the gold. "So you don't care about what Trey wanted?" I asked, leading her further onto the ledge. "Trey was a fool," Courtney spat. "He wanted to play happy family in a shack. He held me back. He wanted me to be a housewife. That money is my payment, Silas. It is my payment for putting up with him. It is my payment for birthing that brat." I froze. The entire restaurant seemed to go silent, though I knew the clinking of glasses continued around us. "That brat," I repeated. "That is your daughter. She is a golden goose," Courtney hissed, leaning across the table, her eyes manic. "That is what she is. She is the key to the vault. And once I have that money, I don't care if she goes to boarding school in Switzerland or Timbuktu. I am going to live the life I deserve. I am going to be somebody. And you old relic, are just a speed bump. Now sign the paper." The recording was perfect, every word crisp and clear. She had admitted it. She didn't want the child. She wanted the check. She had insulted the dead and commodified the living. I looked at Chad. He wasn't shocked. He was bored. He was checking his phone. He was in on it. He probably had the offshore accounts already set up to drain the trust the moment the ink was dry. I sat back in my chair. I took off the cheap reading glasses and placed them on the table. I looked Courtney dead in the eye. The trembling in my hands stopped. The confusion in my face vanished, replaced by the stone-cold gaze of a man who has stared down Category 5 hurricanes and kept his bridges standing. "One question, Courtney," I said, my voice dropping an octave, finding the deep, resonant timbre that used to command crews of 200 men. What she asked, blinking, unsettled by the sudden shift in my demeanor. "Do you love her?" I asked. "Not the money? Not the potential? Do you love the little girl who cries for her grandfather when she scrapes her knee? Do you even know her favorite color? Do you know she is afraid of thunderstorms because she thinks the sky is cracking?" Courtney stared at me. For a second, just a second, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Shame. But it was quickly drowned out by avarice. "Love is for poor people, Silas," she sneered. "Love doesn't buy Chanel. Love doesn't get you a seat at this table. Now sign." I nodded slowly. I reached into my inner jacket pocket. But instead of a pen, I pulled out a single, folded sheet of paper. It wasn't the legal document Chad had provided. It was a page from my own notepad. I smoothed it out on the table. It was blank. I borrowed Chad's expensive Mont Blanc pen from where he had left it next to his water glass. He watched me confused. I signed my name on the blank paper. Silas Vance. Large, sweeping. There, I said. I signed. Chad grabbed the paper, frowning. "What is this?" he demanded. "This is a blank piece of paper. This isn't the contract." "It is a receipt," I said, standing up. "A receipt for what?" Courtney asked, her voice rising. "For the lesson," I said. I buttoned my jacket. I looked down at them, two small, vicious people sitting in their expensive clothes, thinking they held the world in their hands. "I need time to review the actual documents with my own counsel." I lied smoothly. "But consider that signature my acknowledgement that we have met. I will be in touch. You can't just leave," Courtney shrieked, causing the couple at the next table to turn and stare. "We had a deal. You sign or we destroy you." I ignored her. I reached into my wallet. I didn't pull out a crumpled $5 bill. I didn't pull out a debit card. I pulled out a crisp, fresh $100 bill. I dropped it on the table right on top of Chad's legal brief. "What is that for?" Chad asked, staring at the money like it was a foreign object. "For the waiter," I said. "I imagine you two aren't the tipping type." "And for the inconvenience." "Inconvenience," Courtney sputtered. "Yes," I said, turning to walk away. "The inconvenience of realizing that the old man you thought was broke just tipped the waiter more than your meal cost." I walked toward the exit. I didn't look back. I could feel their eyes boring into my back, confusion warring with anger. They couldn't understand. Why would a poor man throw away $100? Why wasn't I begging? Why wasn't I crying? As I pushed through the glass doors into the humid Atlanta afternoon, I touched the recorder in my pocket again. I had what I needed. They had given me the ammunition. Now all I had to do was load the gun. Courtney thought the war was over because I had retreated from the battlefield. She didn't know I was just moving to higher ground. The real war, the war for Maya's soul and my son's legacy, was about to begin. And the first shot had just been fired. The vibration in my pocket started before I even unlocked my front door. It wasn't a call. It was a relentless, buzzing stream of notifications. My burner phone was silent, but my personal phone, the one only family and a few neighbors had, was lighting up like a Christmas tree. I walked into my living room, the space feeling vast and empty without Maya's toys scattered on the rug. I sat in my armchair, the leather groaning under my weight, and unlocked the screen. Courtney hadn't waited for her spa appointment. She had gone straight to the court of public opinion. A video was trending locally. It had been posted 40 minutes ago and already had 10,000 views. The thumbnail was Courtney, her eyes red and puffy, mascara artfully smeared, clutching a stuffed rabbit that Maya hadn't played with since she was 3. I pressed play. "Please," she sobbed into the camera, the filter making her skin look porcelain and fragile. "If anyone sees this, please help me. My father-in-law, Silas Vance, has taken my daughter. He is unstable. He is violent. He threatened me today. He said if I tried to take her back, he would hurt us both." She paused for effect, wiping a tear that wasn't there. I tried to be nice. I tried to let him be part of her life. But he is obsessed. He thinks she belongs to him. I am terrified for my baby girl. Please, we need legal fees to fight him. We need support. Don't let this monster win. Beneath the video, the comments were a cesspool of outrage. People who didn't know me, People who had never seen how I braided Maya's hair or taught her to ride a bike were calling for my head. Monster! Someone needs to go over there and handle him. Call the police. Save that little girl. The narrative was being written in real time. I was the angry, dangerous black man hoarding a white woman's child. She knew exactly what buttons to push. She knew exactly how to weaponize her tears in a society that loves a damsel in distress. I didn't comment. I didn't report the video. I just watched it, studying her performance. She was good, but she was overplaying her hand. She claimed I was violent. She claimed I was unstable. She was building a house of cards on a foundation of lies, and I knew exactly which card to pull to bring it all down. But the internet doesn't stay on the screen. It bleeds into reality. That night, around 2 a.m, the first stone was cast. I was in the kitchen reviewing the trust documents Caldwell had sent over when the front window shattered. The sound was like a gunshot, sharp and violent. Glass sprayed across the hardwood floor, glistening in the moonlight. I didn't flinch. I didn't run to the window. I stayed low and moved to the wall out of the line of sight. A brick lay amidst the shards. Wrapped around it was a piece of notebook paper. I picked it up. Give her back, or else it read in jagged, angry scrawl. I looked out through the broken pane. A sedan was speeding away, taillights disappearing around the curve. They wanted to scare me. They wanted to flush me out. They wanted me to react so they could film it and say, "See, we told you he was dangerous." I calmly swept up this glass. I taped a piece of heavy cardboard over the window. I put the brick and the note in an evidence bag. This wasn't vandalism. This was ammunition for my countersuit. I went back to my paperwork. Let them throw stones. I was building a fortress. The next morning brought a different kind of assault. It wasn't a brick. It was a knock. Precise, official, authoritative. I opened the door to find a woman standing there. She was severe, wearing a gray suit that looked uncomfortable in the Georgia heat. She held a clipboard like a shield. Behind her stood a uniformed officer, his arms crossed. "Mr. Vance," she said, her voice clipped and cold. "I am Agent Miller with Child Protective Services. We received multiple reports regarding the safety of a minor previously in your care. We are here to conduct an emergency home inspection to determine if this environment is suitable for children." They were fast. Courtney's digital mob had flooded the hotline. "Do you have a warrant?" I asked, blocking the doorway. "We have probable cause based on credible threats of violence reported by the mother and concerned citizens," she replied, stepping forward. "If you refuse entry, we will return with a court order and law enforcement to remove any other vulnerable individuals from the premises. Refusal will be noted in your file as non-compliance and admission of guilt." I stepped aside. "Come in." Agent Miller walked into my home with her nose wrinkled as if she smelled something rotting. She didn't see the clean floors. She didn't see the bookshelves lined with Maya's favorite stories. She saw an old house in a black neighborhood and made her judgment before her pen hit the paper. She ran a finger over the doorframe, checking for dust. She opened the refrigerator, inspecting the expiration dates on the milk. She looked at the patch of cardboard on the window. Broken window, she noted, scribbling furiously. Sign of a violent environment. Unsafe perimeter. "It was vandalism," I said calmly. "From the people who watched the mother's video." "So you admit there are hostile individuals targeting this home," she countered without looking up. "That puts the child at risk." "The child isn't here," I reminded her. "Her mother took her yesterday. We are establishing a baseline for future placement," she snapped. Or lack thereof. She went into Maya's room. It was exactly as Maya had left it. The bed was made. The dinosaur posters were straight. It was a room full of love. Agent Miller opened the closet. She looked at the clothes. "Hand-me-downs," she muttered. "Frayed hems. Shoes look worn. Financial instability." "Those are play clothes," I said, my jaw tightening. "Her school clothes are in the dresser." She ignored me. She checked the bathroom. She checked the water pressure. She checked things that had nothing to do with child safety and everything to do with finding a reason to fail me. "Mr. Vance," she said, turning to me in the hallway. "This home is old. The wiring looks suspect. The neighborhood is high risk. You are a single elderly man with no support system. And now you have community members throwing bricks through your window." "I have raised her for 6 years," I said, my voice low. "She has never missed a meal. She has never missed a day of school. She is happy here." "That is not what the reports say," she said, closing her folder. "The reports say you are hoarding her. The reports say you are aggressive. Based on my observation of your hostile demeanor and the physical state of the home, I am recommending that custody remain with the mother pending a full investigation. I am also flagging this address as unsuitable for overnight visitation. She handed me a carbon copy of her report. It was a death sentence for my custody rights. Unsuitable, hostile, unstable. "Have a nice day, Mr. Vance," she said and walked out. I stood there holding the yellow paper. The system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as it was designed. It was designed to crush men like me. Courtney knew that. She had weaponized the bureaucracy against me. I didn't tear up the paper. I added it to the file. I didn't go online to defend myself. I didn't post a counter video screaming about my rights. That is what they wanted. They wanted a noise war. I prefer silent warfare. I got into my truck. I drove past the grocery store, past the park where I taught Maya to swing. I drove to Lincoln Elementary School. The secretary knew me. She buzzed me in without asking for ID. I walked to Mrs. Higgins' classroom. It was empty. The kids were at recess. Mrs. Higgins was grading papers at her desk. She was a woman of 60, stern but kind, who had taught 3 generations of children in this neighborhood. "Mr. Vance," she said, looking up over her spectacles. "I saw the news. I saw that awful video. How is Maya?" "She is scared," I said. "But I am going to get her back. I need your help, Martha." Anything she said. "I need her art portfolio," I said. "I need everything she has drawn, everything she has written for the last 6 years. Mrs. Higgins went to the filing cabinet. She pulled out a thick folder. "I kept these," she said, handing it to me. I had a feeling. I opened the folder. It was a timeline of a little girl's heart. There were drawings of us fishing, drawings of us cooking, drawings of me fixing her bike. And there were the family portraits. Every year the teacher asked them to draw their family. Age 4, just me and Maya holding hands under a big sun. Age 5, me and Maya eating ice cream. Age 6, me and Maya building a bridge. There was no mother in any of them. Courtney didn't exist in Maya's world. She wasn't erased. She was simply never there to begin with. "Does the mother ever call?" I asked. "Does she ever pick her up?" "Never," Mrs. Higgins said. "Not once." I have never seen that woman's face until I saw it on Facebook yesterday, lying through her teeth. I will testify, Silas. I will tell the judge exactly who raised that child. "Thank you," I said, closing the folder. "This is more powerful than any DNA test. This is the truth from the mouth of a babe." My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was the burner phone, the emergency line. I stepped into the hallway and answered. "Caldwell." "Silas, we have a problem," Caldwell said, his voice tight. "A big one. What is it?" My contact at the county clerk's office just flagged a filing. "An expedited deed transfer." "Transfer of what?" "Trey's house," Caldwell said. "The old Victorian on Elm Street that you kept in his name. The one you were saving for Maya. What about it?" "It is listed for pending sale, Silas. Cash offer, fast closing. The seller is listed as Courtney Vance, acting as executor of the estate." "She can't do that," I said, my hand gripping the phone so hard the plastic creaked. "I am the executor. The deed is locked in the trust. She forged it, Silas. She forged your signature on a quitclaim deed and filed it this morning. She found a buyer who doesn't ask questions. A flipper. They are trying to close in 48 hours. She is liquidating the assets before we even get to court." "How much?" $300,000. Half its value. She is dumping it for quick cash. She needs money to pay Chad and fund this war against you." "Stop it," I ordered. "I can't stop a pending sale without an injunction, and the courts are closed for the filing deadline today. By the time we get a judge, the title will have transferred. Then I will stop it myself," I said. "Silas, don't do anything illegal. I don't need to break the law, Caldwell. I built that house. I know every nail. I know every wire, and I know exactly why it hasn't sold in 10 years. What are you going to do?" "I am going to make sure that house is unsellable," I said. "Send me the buyer's info." I hung up. Courtney wasn't just coming for Maya. She was scorching the earth. She was selling my son's memory for a quick payout. She wanted a war of attrition. She wanted to strip me of everything until I broke. But she forgot one thing. I am a builder, and a builder knows that before you can erect a new structure, sometimes you have to demolish the old one. I walked out of the school, the folder of drawings tucked under my arm like a shield. I wasn't going home. I was going to Trey's house. And I was going to remind Courtney that you cannot sell what you do not own, and you cannot fight a man who controls the very ground you stand on. The Fulton County Family Court smelled of floor wax and broken promises. I sat at the defendant's table, my hands folded on top of the scarred wood, my spine as straight as a steel girder. Beside me, Caldwell sat in silence, his breathing heavy, his eyes half closed as if he were napping. But I knew he wasn't sleeping. He was a viper waiting for the vibration of a footstep. Across the aisle, Courtney sat dabbing at dry eyes with a lace handkerchief she had certainly bought yesterday. She was wearing a modest navy dress and pearls, looking every inch the grieving widow and devoted mother. It was a costume, just like the one she wore the day she abandoned my granddaughter. Her lawyer was a man named Sterling, a shark in a $3,000 suit with a tan that came from a bottle. He didn't look at me. He looked through me. To him, I was just debris to be cleared from the construction site. Your Honor, Sterling began, his voice booming in the small courtroom. We are here to rectify a gross miscarriage of justice. For 6 years, my client has been recovering from severe postpartum trauma, seeking treatment abroad, trying to heal so she could be the mother her daughter deserves. And in her absence, this man, this geriatric stranger, has hoarded the child in a dilapidated home in a high-crime neighborhood. He walked toward the judge, waving a hand in my direction. Look at him, Your Honor. Mr. Vance is 69 years old. He is a retired laborer living on a fixed income. He has no support system. He has no resources. He is selfishly clinging to a child he cannot physically or financially support. He is robbing this child of a life of privilege and stability with her natural mother. We are asking for immediate permanent custody and full control of the minor's estate to ensure her future is secured. The judge, a bald man with a face etched by years of listening to lies, nodded sympathetically. He looked at me with pity. He saw the gray hair. He saw the calloused hands. He saw a man past his prime. He didn't see the structural engineer who could calculate the load-bearing capacity of this entire building in his head. He saw a stereotype. Mr. Vance Sterling continued twisting the knife. You claim to love this child, but you are one slip in the shower away from leaving her an orphan again. You are keeping her in poverty. You are keeping her from her mother. It is not just irresponsible, it is cruel. Courtney let out a perfectly timed sob. The judge's face hardened. Mr. Caldwell, the judge said, looking at my lawyer, do you have anything to say before I rule? The air in the room was thick. I felt the weight of the system pressing down on me. They wanted to take Maya. They wanted to give her to the wolf because the wolf was wearing sheep's clothing. Caldwell opened his eyes. He didn't stand up immediately. He took a sip of water. He adjusted his glasses. Then he reached into his battered briefcase and pulled out a single thick binder bound in red leather. He stood up slowly, his joints popping. Your Honor. Caldwell said, his voice rasping like sandpaper. My colleague tells a very moving story, a story of a sick mother seeking healing, a story of a poor old man hoarding a child. It is a beautiful story, but unlike my colleague, I prefer evidence. Caldwell walked to the bench and placed the binder in front of the judge. This, Your Honor, is not a legal brief. This is what we call the travel diary. Courtney stopped sobbing. Her head snapped up. Her eyes locked on the red binder, and for the first time fear flickered behind the mask. Sterling frowned. Objection, Your Honor. I haven't seen this evidence. You will see it now, Caldwell said, turning to face the courtroom. You claim your client was in treatment for 6 years. You claim she was suffering. Mr. Vance, who has been protecting his granddaughter's interests since the day she was abandoned, hired a private investigator 5 years ago, not to harass, but to ensure the mother was safe. What he found was educational. The judge opened the binder. His eyes widened. Tab 1, Caldwell said, 6 months after abandoning her child. While Mr. Vance was teaching Maya to walk, Mrs. Vance was not in a clinic. She was in Ibiza. I watched the judge's face. He turned the page. Tab 2. While Mr. Vance was nursing Maya through the chicken pox, staying up for 3 nights straight, Mrs. Vance was at a high-stakes poker tournament in Macau. The photo shows her on the arm of a known arms dealer. Courtney stood up, her face flushing red. That is a lie. That is photoshopped. Sit down, madam, the judge barked without looking up. Tab 3. Caldwell continued, his voice gaining strength, filling the room with the force of truth. Maya's 4th birthday. She cried because her mother didn't call. On that same day, Mrs. Vance posted a photo on a private Instagram account. The caption reads, "Living my best life free from the brats. Location, A yacht in Dubai. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. The only sound was the turning of pages. The judge was flipping through them faster now. Photos of parties, photos of drugs, receipts from luxury hotels. 6 years of hedonism documented in high definition. Sterling looked at Courtney. She was pale, her hands gripping the table so hard her knuckles were white. "This is irrelevant." Sterling tried to argue, but his voice was weak. "The mother is here now. She is ready to parent." "Is she?" Caldwell asked. "Or is she here because last week the news broke that the child is worth $12 million? "Objection," Sterling shouted. "Speculation." "Is it?" Caldwell countered. "Look at the last page, Your Honor. A text message intercepted from Mrs. Vance's phone just 3 days ago sent to her current partner. It reads, 'The old man is going down. Once I get the kid, I get the cash, and we are gone.'" The judge looked at the last page. He stared at it for a long time. Then he looked up at Courtney. The pity was gone. In its place was cold, hard disgust. "Mrs. Vance," the judge said, his voice quiet and dangerous. "Is this your number?" Courtney didn't answer. She was breathing hard, her chest heaving. "I asked you a question," the judge thundered. "It was taken out of context," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "He is stalking me. He is a creep. He has been spying on me." The judge closed the binder. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "This court finds the timing of the mother's return highly suspicious given the financial circumstances. The evidence presented contradicts the claim of medical rehabilitation. It suggests abandonment and a motive of financial gain." Courtney stood up so fast her chair fell over. "You can't do this," she screamed. "I am her mother. I have rights. Your rights ended when you chose a yacht over your daughter for 6 years, the judge snapped. "I am ordering a full investigation by Child Protective Services. I am appointing a guardian ad litem to represent the child's interests separate from both parties. Until that investigation is complete, temporary custody remains with the state." "With the state," Courtney yelled. "You are putting my daughter in foster care." "Better the state than a woman who sees her child as an ATM," the judge said. "Mr. Vance, I am granting you supervised visitation rights pending the investigation, but I cannot grant you custody today, not with the current questions regarding your housing situation. It wasn't a total victory. Maya wasn't coming home with me yet. But Courtney wasn't getting her either. And more importantly, the judge had seen her. He had seen the monster beneath the makeup." Courtney turned to Sterling, her face twisted in a rictus of pure rage. "You said this was a slam dunk," she hissed, spitting the words at him. "You said he was just a broke old man." "I did my best," Sterling said, backing away. "The evidence was damning, Courtney." "You are fired," she screamed. And then she did something that sealed her fate. In a blind fury, she raised her hand and slapped her own lawyer across the face. The sound echoed through the courtroom, a sharp crack that made the bailiff jump forward. Sterling stumbled back, holding his cheek stunned. "Order," the judge shouted, banging his gavel. "Bailiff, control that woman." 2 officers moved in, grabbing Courtney by the arms. She struggled, kicking and screaming obscenities that would make a sailor blush. "I want my money!" she screamed, looking at me. "Give me my money, old man." I stood up slowly. I buttoned my jacket. I looked at her thrashing in the grip of the bailiffs, her mask completely gone, her true, ugly self exposed for the world to see. I caught her eye. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just looked at her with the calm, patient gaze of a man who knows that gravity always wins eventually. I tapped my pocket where the recorder was still running. "Does she know?" the judge asked me quietly as the bailiffs dragged her toward the door. "Does she know you have been watching her all this time?" "Not yet." "Your Honor," I said, "she is just beginning to learn." Courtney was hauled out of the courtroom, her screams fading down the hallway. Sterling gathered his papers and fled without looking at me. Caldwell closed his briefcase. "That went well," he said dryly. "She is desperate now," I said. "Yes," Caldwell agreed, "and desperate people do dangerous things. She knows the legal route is blocked. She knows she can't charm the judge. She's going to come at you hard, Silas. She's going to come at you outside the law." I know I said thinking of the traps I had set in my house. "Let her come," I said. "I built bridges that withstood earthquakes, Caldwell. Let her see what happens when she tries to break me." We walked out of the courtroom. The air outside felt cleaner, but the storm was far from over. Courtney had lost the battle in the light of day. Now she would try to win in the dark. She would come for the keys. She would come for the passwords. She would come for me. I got into the car service sedan. "Where to, sir?" the driver asked. "Home," I said. "I have some preparations to make." As the car pulled away, I looked at the sky. Dark clouds were gathering over Atlanta. A storm was coming, literal and metaphorical. I checked the security app on my phone. The cameras at my house were live. The sensors were active. Courtney thought she was the predator. She didn't know she was walking into a fortress designed by a man who knew how to make things stay up, and more importantly, how to make things fall down on top of his enemies. Tonight would be the test, and I was ready. The rain came down over Atlanta like a curtain of lead. It hammered against the roof shingles and turned the gutters into overflowing rivers. It was the kind of storm that drowned out the world, the kind of noise that hid the sound of breaking glass and prying metal. I sat in my armchair in the dark living room, a mug of cold coffee in my hand. I wasn't sleeping. I haven't slept properly since the day Maya was taken. I was waiting. I knew Courtney. I knew desperation. And I knew that when a rat is cornered, it doesn't fight fair. It bites. She had lost in court. Her lawyer had been humiliated. The judge had seen through her mask. Now she was going to try the only option she had left. She needed the money. She needed the access codes to the trust. And she knew I was the only person who had them. She thought I was an old man alone in a big creaky house. She thought I would be asleep. She didn't know that before I built bridges, I was a combat engineer in the Army Corps. I spent 3 years in places that aren't on maps learning how to secure a perimeter and how to neutralize a threat without firing a single shot. At 2:15 in the morning, the sensor on the back porch tripped. A silent notification flashed on the tablet resting on my lap. I didn't move. I watched the screen. The night vision camera painted the world in ghostly greens and grays. 2 figures were creeping up the back steps. They were dressed in black hoods, up faces covered. They moved with the jerky, nervous energy of amateurs. Professionals check for cameras. Professionals cut the power. These 2 just wanted to get in and get out. One of them knelt by the back door. I saw the glint of a pry bar. He jammed it into the frame. The wood groaned, a sound lost in a clap of thunder that shook the floorboards. The lock gave way with a snap. They were in. I stood up slowly, my joints popping. I didn't reach for a gun. I didn't need one. My house was the weapon. I had spent the last 24 hours modifying the layout. I had turned my home into a funnel. I watched on the tablet as they stepped into the kitchen. They were whispering, their flashlights cutting erratic beams through the darkness. "Find the office," one of them hissed. The boyfriend said the old man keeps the drives in a safe. The boyfriend, Chad. He hadn't come himself. He was too cowardly for that. He had hired muscle, cheap muscle. They moved out of the kitchen and into the hallway. This was the kill zone. The hallway was narrow, lined with family photos I had taken down to protect them from damage. I had laid a tripwire across the floorboards, fishing line painted black, invisible in the gloom. It wasn't connected to an alarm. It was connected to a pressurized canister I had rigged above the doorframe. The lead intruder took a step. His boot caught the line. There was a sharp hiss of compressed air. What he started to say. Then the canister discharged. It wasn't poison gas. It was a mixture of finely ground cayenne pepper and flour designed to hang in the air and coat everything it touched. It exploded into the hallway like a red cloud. Both men screamed. They dropped their flashlights. They clawed at their eyes, coughing and gagging as the powder filled their lungs and burned their corneas. It is a trick I learned 40 years ago to clear tunnels. It causes panic. It causes disorientation. It makes a man forget his plan and focus only on escaping the pain. "I can't see," one of them yelled, stumbling backward. "My eyes. It burns." "Run," the other shouted. They turned, trying to find the way back to the kitchen. But I had anticipated that. In their blind panic, they missed the turn. I had blocked the kitchen doorway with a heavy bookshelf I had moved earlier. The only open path led to the door on the left, the door to the basement. I had left it slightly ajar. A cool draft came up from below, promising fresh air, promising escape from the burning cloud in the hallway. They stumbled toward it, crashing into each other. They fell through the doorway, tumbling down the wooden stairs in a tangle of limbs and curses. As soon as they hit the bottom, I stepped out from the shadows of the living room. I walked to the basement door. I slammed it shut and threw the heavy steel bolt I had installed years ago to keep Maya from wandering down there. I heard them hitting the door from the other side, pounding on the wood. "Open up," one screamed. "Let us out." I ignored them. I walked to the kitchen sink and washed my hands. I poured the cold coffee down the drain. The storm raged outside, masking their screams from the neighbors. I was calm. My heart rate hadn't even spiked. The structure had held. The load had been managed. Now it was time for the inspection. I walked to the pantry. Inside, hidden behind cans of soup, was the ventilation control for the basement. I turned on the fan. It would clear the pepper dust from the air down there in a few minutes. I didn't want them to suffocate. I wanted them to talk. I went to the intercom system on the wall. It was an old model wired directly into the house. I pressed the button for the basement. "Gentlemen," I said, my voice amplified by the speakers downstairs. "Please settle down, you are wasting your energy." The pounding stopped. There was a silence, heavy and terrified. "Who is that?" a voice quavered. "I am the man whose house you just broke into," I said. "I am the man who has you locked in a concrete box with no windows and one exit. And I am the man who is currently deciding whether to call the police or simply turn off the ventilation and leave you down there until the smell becomes a problem." "Please," the other man sobbed. "We made a mistake. Let us go. We won't come back." "I know you won't," I said. "But before I decide your fate, we need to have a conversation. There is a camera in the corner. Look at it." I checked the tablet. On the screen, two men, their faces red and swollen, their eyes streaming tears, looked up at the lens. They looked young, stupid, desperate. They weren't hardened criminals. They were opportunists who had taken a job they didn't understand. "Who sent you?" I asked. "We don't know his name," the first man said. "He just called us." "Do not lie to me," I said, my voice dropping. "The air in that basement is limited. I can make it very uncomfortable down there. I want a name. I want to know who told you about the safe. I want to know who told you about the drives." The men looked at each other. They were weighing their loyalty to a man who paid them a few $100 against the terror of being buried alive by a voice in the wall. "It was a lawyer," the second man blurted out. "A guy named Chad. He met us at a bar. He gave us $500 and a floor plan. He said an old man lived here alone. He said you had crypto keys in a safe under the floor." "Chad," I said, savoring the name. "Chad sent you." "Yes," the man cried. "He said you were senile. He said it would be easy. Just scare him, get the drives, and get out. He said he would pay us another $1,000 when we brought the keys." "Did he tell you to hurt me?" I asked. "He said do whatever it takes." The first man admitted, his voice barely a whisper. He said if the old man gets in the way, put him down. He said nobody cares about a dead construction worker. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Put him down. That was the order. It wasn't a robbery. It was a hit. Courtney and Chad had escalated. They weren't just trying to steal from me. They were willing to kill me to get to the money. "Say it again," I ordered. "Say it clearly. Chad hired you to break in, steal the keys, and harm me if I resisted." "Yes," the man said, looking directly into the camera. "Chad hired us." "Please, mister. We didn't do it. We didn't hurt you. Let us go." I saved the recording. I backed it up to the cloud. I backed it up to a remote server. This was it. This was the nail in the coffin. I stepped away from the intercom. I went to the landline. I dialed 911. "Emergency services," the operator answered. "I need police," I said, letting my voice tremble, letting the old man seep back into my tone. "Someone has broken into my house. I am hiding. I think they are in the basement. Please hurry. I am terrified." "Stay on the line, sir," the operator said. "Officers are dispatched. Are you safe?" "I locked the door," I whispered. "But they are screaming. They said they want to kill me. Please help." I hung up the phone. I sat on the floor in the hallway, leaning against the wall. I waited for the sirens. The storm was still raging outside, but the storm inside my house was contained. I had the confession. I had the intruders. And Courtney and Chad were about to find out that when you hire wolves to hunt a lion, you better make sure the lion is actually asleep. The police arrived in 6 minutes. They found a terrified 69-year-old man cowering in his kitchen. They found 2 intruders locked in the basement, crying for their mothers covered in red dust. They arrested them. They took their statements. And when the detective listened to the recording I provided, the look on his face told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just a break-in anymore. It was conspiracy to commit murder. And the trail led straight to the luxury apartment where Courtney and Chad were waiting for a phone call that would never come. I watched the police cars pull away, the red and blue lights reflecting off the wet pavement. I was alone again. My house was a mess. My window was broken. My hallway was covered in pepper dust. But I stood tall. The foundation had held. The enemy had breached the perimeter, and the enemy had been neutralized. I went to the sink and poured a glass of water. My hands were steady. The night was far from over. Courtney would realize her hired hands had failed. She would be scared. And a scared Courtney was dangerous, but a scared Courtney was also careless. She would make a mistake, and I would be there to catch it. I looked at the picture of Maya on the fridge. "I am coming, baby girl," I whispered. "Grandpa is coming, and I am bringing the thunder with me." The luxury suite at the Four Seasons in downtown Atlanta smelled of stale champagne and expensive perfume, masking the scent of desperation. It was a golden cage, and inside it Courtney was pacing like a trapped animal. The news from her hired thugs had come in an hour ago. They had failed. They were in custody. And they had talked. Courtney wasn't worried about the men. She was worried about the money. The $12 million felt further away than ever, and the walls were closing in. She needed a drink. She needed to forget that her plan was crumbling. She needed to feel like a winner again, even if only for a few hours. Maya sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, her small legs dangling. She was wearing the same clothes she had been wearing when Courtney snatched her from my porch 2 days ago. Her hair, usually braided neatly by my hands, was a tangled mess. She was clutching a pillow, looking at her mother with wide, terrified eyes. "Stop staring at me," Courtney snapped, spinning around. "You are giving me a headache." "I am hungry," Mommy Maya whispered. "Room service is closed." Courtney lied. There was a fully stocked minibar, but she wouldn't open it. She wouldn't waste the money. Every dollar spent on Maya was a dollar less for her. Chad was sitting in the corner, scrolling through his phone, his face pale. "We need to leave," he muttered. "If those guys talk, the police will be here by morning." "We are not leaving," Courtney hissed. "Leaving looks like guilt. We stay. We fight. But first, I need a drink. I need to get out of this room. It smells like brat." She grabbed her purse. She grabbed her coat. She looked at Maya, not with maternal concern, but with the cold calculation of a woman deciding where to store a piece of luggage. "You stay here," she ordered. "Do not open the door. Do not touch anything. Do not watch TV. Just go to sleep." "Can I come with you?" Maya asked, her voice trembling. "I don't like the dark." "No, you cannot come," Courtney shouted. "You are the reason this is so hard. You are the reason I am stressed. If you hadn't been born, I would be in Paris right now. You are bad luck, just like your father." She turned off the lights, plunging the room into darkness save for the city glow filtering through the sheer curtains. "Come on, Chad," she said. "Let's go to the Velvet Room. I need a martini." They walked out. The heavy door clicked shut. Then came the sound of the deadbolt sliding home. Courtney didn't just leave her child. She locked her in. She trapped her like a prisoner in a high tower so she could go downstairs and pretend she was still the queen of the world. 5 miles away, I was sitting on my living room floor scrubbing the last of the pepper dust from the hardwood. My hands were raw from the chemicals, but the physical pain was a distraction from the agony in my chest. I knew Courtney. I knew that when she was angry, she lashed out at the weakest thing in the room. And right now, the weakest thing in her room was my granddaughter. My burner phone buzzed. I froze. It wasn't a call from Caldwell. It wasn't a call from the police. It was a specific ringtone. A simple chime I had programmed into a very special device. 6 months ago, when Courtney started making noise about visiting, I had taken precautions. I bought a small emergency phone. It looked like a toy, a little pink rectangle with 4 buttons. I had sewn it into the lining of Maya's favorite backpack, the one with the sequined unicorn. I told her it was a magic box. I told her if she was ever scared, and I wasn't there, she should press the green button and hold it to her ear. I prayed she had the backpack. I picked up the phone, my hand shaking for the first time in 40 years. "Maya," I whispered. "Grandpa?" The voice on the other end was small, broken sobbing. "Grandpa, it is dark." I closed my eyes, fighting back the tears that threatened to choke me. I had to be strong. I had to be the engineer. I had to assess the situation and find the solution. "Where are you, baby girl?" I asked, keeping my voice level and calm. "I don't know," she cried. "It is a big room. There are big windows. I can see the pointy building with the lights, the Bank of America Plaza." She was downtown. "Are you alone, Maya?" "Yes." Mommy left. She said I am bad luck. She turned off the lights and locked the door. "Grandpa, I am hungry. My tummy hurts. Rage is a useful fuel. It burns clean. It burns hot. But in that moment I felt a cold fury that was far more dangerous. Courtney had abandoned her child again. Not for 6 years this time, but in a strange city, in a strange room in the dark. "I am coming to get you, Maya," I said, my instincts screaming at me to grab my keys and drive my truck through the lobby of whatever hotel she was in. But then I stopped. The police officer's warning echoed in my head. "If you go near them, we will file charges." If I showed up at that hotel, Courtney would spin it. She would say I stalked her. She would say I broke in. She would say I was kidnapping the child again. And the law always favors the mother, especially a white mother against a black grandfather with a record of confrontation. If I went to get her, I would lose her forever. I would be in jail and she would be back with Courtney. I had to do the hardest thing a man can do. I had to let someone else save her. "Maya, listen to me," I said, my voice cracking. "You are brave. You are a Vance, and Vances are tough. I need you to be brave for a little bit longer. Can you do that for Grandpa?" "I want you," she whimpered. "I know, baby. I know. But I am going to send the helpers. I am going to send the good police officers to get you some food." "Okay." "Okay," she whispered. "Stay on the phone, Maya. Put it under your pillow. Do not hang up. I will be right here." I grabbed my other phone. I dialed 911, emergency services. "I need to report a child endangerment in progress," I said, my voice turning to steel. "My 7-year-old granddaughter has been abandoned in a hotel room in downtown Atlanta. She is alone. She is locked in, and she is terrified." "What is the address, sir?" "I don't know the room number," I said, "but she can see the Bank of America building. It is a high-rise, likely the Four Seasons or the Westin. Ping this phone number." I gave them the number of the toy phone. "I am a retired engineer," I said. "I know how triangulation works. Find her, now." I stayed on the line with the operator. I stayed on the other line with Maya, humming a lullaby she hadn't heard since she was 3. I sat in my dark living room, 2 phones pressed to my ears, a bridge between my granddaughter's terror and the help that was coming. It took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of hell. I heard the sirens through Maya's phone first. Then I heard the heavy thud of boots in a hallway. "Police, open up," a voice shouted through the tiny speaker. Grandpa Maya cried. "It is okay, baby," I said, tears finally streaming down my face. "Open the door if you can." "I can't," she said. "It is locked." "Stand back," the officer shouted. There was a crash, the sound of a door being kicked in, then the sound of a child screaming. "It is okay, sweetie, we are here," a female officer's voice said, gentle and soothing. "Where is your mommy?" "She left." Maya sobbed. "She went to drink the special juice." I heard the officers moving through the room. I heard them checking the bathroom, the closets. "Clear 1, officer said. "No adults. Just the kid." "Central, we have a 1098, the female officer said into her radio. "Child abandoned. Conditions are poor, no food, no water. Mother is absent." I hung up the 911 call. I kept the line with Maya open, but I stayed silent listening. I needed to know she was safe. "We need to call CPS, the officer said. "This is severe neglect. We cannot leave her here." My heart shattered. CPS, the system, foster care. It was the nightmare scenario. Maya would be taken to a strange house with strange people. She would be scared. She would be alone. But she would be away from Courtney. It was a surgical amputation. To save the patient, I had to cut off the limb. To save Maya from her mother, I had to let the state take her. It was the only way to document the abuse. It was the only way to create a paper trail that Courtney couldn't cry her way out of. I heard the officers taking photos. I heard them cataloging the empty room, the locked door. This was evidence. This was the ammunition I needed for court. Grandpa Maya whispered into the phone, "Are you there?" "I am here, baby," I said. "You have to go with the nice lady. She is going to give you dinner." "Will you come get me?" "I promise," I said. "I promise on my life. It might take a few days. But I am coming." The officer must have found the phone. "Hello? Who is this?" she asked. "I am her grandfather, Silas Vance," I said. "I am the one who called." "Mr. Vance," the officer said, her tone softening. "We have her. She is safe. But we have to follow protocol. Since you do not have custody and the mother is the custodial parent but absent, we have to place her in emergency protective care. I know, I said. Just tell me she is safe. She is safe. We are taking her out now. Tell her I love her. I said. I will. The line went dead. I sat in the silence of my home. The pepper dust was settling. The storm outside was breaking, but the storm inside me was just beginning. Courtney was at a bar drinking martinis, thinking she had won. She didn't know that police were currently putting an amber notice on her file. She didn't know that Child Protective Services was opening a case for severe abandonment. She didn't know that by locking that door, she had unlocked the cage I had been building for her. I stood up, I went to the kitchen, I made a sandwich, I forced myself to eat. I needed strength. Tomorrow, Courtney would find out her daughter was gone. She would panic. She would run. And then when she had nowhere else to turn, she would come to me. She would come for money. She would come for a deal. And when she did, I would be waiting. Not with a gun, not with a fist, but with a contract that would cost her everything she had left. I looked at the empty spot at the table where Maya used to sit. Sleep tight, baby girl, I whispered. Grandpa is building a new bridge, and this one leads straight home. 3 days after Maya was taken into state custody, the silence in my house was no longer empty. It was waiting. The air was thick with the dust of the battle that had passed and the static electricity of the war that was still to come. I spent my mornings at the window watching the street and my afternoons in the study with Caldwell, organizing the paperwork that would serve as the bricks and mortar of my counterattack. I knew Courtney. I knew her patterns. She was a creature of comfort, and right now she was very uncomfortable. Her accounts were frozen. The Child Protective Services investigation had triggered a hold on her assets. Her credit cards were declining. The luxury hotel had likely asked her to leave. She was cornered, and a cornered animal always tries to negotiate its way out of the trap before it tries to bite. At 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, a taxi pulled up to my curb. It wasn't the black luxury sedan she had arrived in before. It was a beat-up yellow cab with a dented fender. Courtney stepped out. She looked like a shadow of the woman who had stormed my porch just days ago. Her designer coat was wrinkled. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. Her sunglasses were gone, revealing eyes rimmed with red and dark circles that makeup couldn't hide. She didn't march to the door. She walked slowly, looking over her shoulder as if she expected the police to jump out of the bushes. She knocked. It was a soft, hesitant sound. I opened the door. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, blocking the entrance, a 69-year-old wall of reinforced concrete. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice raspy. "Why?" I asked. "I have a proposition," she said. "A way to end this. Today." I stepped aside. She walked into the living room and stopped. She didn't look at the photos. She didn't look at the lack of furniture where I had moved things to clean up the pepper dust. She looked at me with a mixture of hatred and exhaustion. "I am leaving," she said abruptly. "Leaving where I asked, leaning against the doorframe, crossing my arms. Leaving the country," she said. "Chad has a connection in Belize. We are going, but I need cash. My accounts are locked. The investigation is ruining everything. I can't access Trey's estate until the probate clears, and that could take months. I don't have months. And what does this have to do with me, Courtney?" "I know you have money," she said. "I don't know how. Maybe you saved it. Maybe you stole it from Trey before he died. I don't care. But I know you tipped a waiter $100 just to spite me. Poor people don't do that." I said nothing. I let her talk. I let her dig. "I will sell you my rights," she said. The words hung in the air, heavy and toxic. "Excuse me," I said, keeping my voice level, though my heart was hammering against my ribs. "You want Maya," she said. "You want to play daddy. Fine. Take her. I will sign a full surrender of parental rights. I will sign an irrevocable consent for adoption. I will disappear. She will be yours legally and forever." And the price I asked. $2 million, she said. Cash. Wire transfer. Today. $2 million. She had put a price tag on her own flesh and blood. She had calculated the value of a human soul and decided it was worth exactly enough to buy a villa in Central America and a lifetime of cocktails. It was monstrous. It was evil. And it was exactly what I had been waiting for. I walked to the kitchen table. I pulled out a chair. "Sit down," I said. She sat. She looked nervous, her hands twitching on the table. $2 million is a lot of money," I said slowly, "for a man living on a pension." "Cut the act, Silas," she snapped, her old venom returning for a brief second. You have it. I can smell it on you. You are not scared. You are not desperate. That means you have resources. Do you want the girl or not? I looked at her. I looked at the woman my son had loved, the woman who had given birth to the most precious thing in my life. And I saw absolutely nothing. No maternal instinct, no guilt, just a hollow vessel filled with greed. I want her, I said. Then pay me, she demanded. I stood up. I walked to the safe in the floor. I didn't care if she saw it now. It didn't matter. I opened it and took out a folder. Inside was a document Caldwell had drafted the night before. We had anticipated this. We knew she would try to cash out. I placed the document on the table. This is a relinquishment of rights, I said. It grants me sole permanent custody. It terminates your parental status. It states that you are doing this voluntarily and that you are abandoning the child to my care. I don't care what it says, she said, reaching for a pen. Just show me the money. The money will be wired to an escrow account, I said. It will be released to you the moment the judge signs the adoption order. That is the deal. She hesitated. She looked at the paper, then at me. How do I know you won't screw me? She asked. Because I want Maya more than I want the money, I said. And you know that. You are banking on my love for her being greater than my hatred for you. And you are right. She smirked. It was a victorious, ugly expression. She thought she had won. She thought she had played me. She thought she had found my weak spot and exploited it for a massive payday. Where do I sign? She asked. I flipped to the last page. I pointed to the line. Right there, I said. She didn't read it. She didn't pause. She didn't ask to say goodbye to Maya. She didn't ask for a picture. She just pressed the pen to the paper and scribbled her name, Courtney Vance. With that signature, she sold her daughter. With that signature, she severed the last tie to humanity she had. She pushed the paper toward me. There she said, standing up, "Send the wire. I want to be on a plane by midnight." I took the paper. I checked the signature. It was valid. It was witnessed by the camera I had recording in the corner of the room. It was legally binding. "There is one more thing," I said. "What now?" She snapped, grabbing her purse. I handed her a copy of the document. "You need to take this," I said, "for your records." She snatched it from my hand. "Pleasure doing business with you, Silas," she said. "Tell Maya. Tell her I went to get cigarettes." She laughed at her own joke, a cruel, sharp sound that echoed in the quiet kitchen. She turned and walked to the door. She opened it, and the afternoon sun flooded in, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. "Goodbye, old man," she called out. "Enjoy your nursing home life when the money runs out." She slammed the door. I stood there alone in the kitchen. I looked at the signature. I looked at the empty chair where she had sat. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, but it was quickly replaced by a cold, hard satisfaction. She hadn't read the contract. She hadn't read the fine print. And she definitely hadn't read the clause I had insisted Caldwell include. Paragraph 14, Section C, written in dense legal Latin and standard English. Nemo commodum capere potest de injuria sua propria. No one can derive an advantage from their own wrong. The clause stated clearly that the financial agreement was null and void if the party receiving funds was currently under criminal investigation for acts related to the child or the estate. It also stated that any funds transferred would be immediately frozen and returned to the grantor upon the filing of criminal charges. Courtney thought she had just signed a winning lottery ticket. She didn't know she had just signed a confession. By accepting money in exchange for parental rights, she had committed child trafficking. By signing the document while under investigation for the break-in, which she didn't know I had already reported, she had triggered the forfeiture clause. And most importantly, she had given me the one thing the court needed to strip her of rights permanently: proof that she didn't want the child, proof that she was willing to sell her. I picked up my burner phone. I dialed Caldwell. "She signed," I said. "Did she read it?" Caldwell asked. "No," I replied. "She just saw the zeros." "Good," Caldwell said. "The wire transfer is set up, but I have flagged it. The bank will hold it for 48 hours for verification. By the time she realizes the money isn't moving, the warrants will be issued." "Is the judge ready?" I asked. "He is," Caldwell said. "We have an emergency hearing tomorrow morning. Bring the document. Bring the recording. And Silas, bring the envelope." The envelope. The one Trey left. The one I had been guarding for 6 years. The one that contained the final devastating truth. "I will bring it," I said. I hung up. I walked to the window. I watched the yellow cab drive away carrying the woman who thought she was rich. She was going to the airport. She was going to try to run, but she wouldn't get far. Her passport was flagged. Her name was in the system. She was running a race she had already lost. I went back to the safe. I put the contract inside. Next to it sat the old yellowed envelope my son had given me a week before he died. He had told me to open it only if Courtney ever tried to take Maya away. I had opened it the day she left 6 years ago. I had read it. I had cried over it. And then I had sealed it back up, waiting for the day it would be needed. That day was tomorrow. Courtney thought this was about money. She thought this was about custody. She didn't know this was about biology. She didn't know that the biggest secret wasn't my wealth. It was her own deception. I touched the envelope. "Tomorrow, Trey," I whispered. "Tomorrow everyone knows." I closed the safe. The floorboards clicked into place. The house was silent again, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with the ghosts of the past, and they were all clamoring for justice. I went to the kitchen and made a cup of tea. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. The trap was sprung. The prey was caught. Now all that was left was to walk into that courtroom and deliver the final blow. Courtney wanted a payout. I was going to give her a receipt for a debt she could never pay. The gavel hit the wood block with a sound like a pistol shot echoing through the high-ceilinged courtroom. It was 10 in the morning and the air was already stale, recycled through vents that hadn't been cleaned since the Reagan administration. I sat at the defendant's table, my hands resting on the scarred mahogany surface, calm and still. Beside me, Caldwell was arranging his papers with the precision of a surgeon preparing for a bypass. Across the aisle, Courtney sat next to a public defender who looked like he had graduated law school yesterday and hadn't slept since. Chad was nowhere to be seen. After the break-in failed and the police started asking questions, he had vanished back into the woodwork like the termite he was leaving Courtney to face the music alone. But Courtney didn't look like a woman facing music. She looked like a woman waiting for a bank teller to count out her cash. She checked her phone constantly, her eyes darting to the clock on the wall. She was waiting for the wire transfer. She was waiting for the $2 million to hit her account so she could run. She didn't know the transfer had been flagged. She didn't know the contract she signed was already void. She was running on pure adrenaline and greed, blind to the cliff edge she was standing on. Mrs. Vance, the judge, said, peering over his spectacles. He was the same judge from the first hearing, Judge Miller. He looked tired. He looked like a man who had seen too many broken families and too many lies. "You have submitted a document to this court titled Relinquishment of Parental Rights. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." Courtney stood up, smoothing her skirt. Her voice was steady, practiced. She was playing the part of the heartbroken mother making a difficult sacrifice. "After much prayer and consideration, I have decided that it is in Maya's best interest to remain with her grandfather. My health, my mental state, I need to focus on healing. Mr. Vance has agreed to provide a financial settlement to assist with my transition and medical care." She made selling her daughter sound like a humanitarian mission. She made $2 million sound like a reimbursement for gas money. The judge looked at the document. He frowned. "This document stipulates a payment of $2 million in exchange for the termination of your rights. Is that accurate?" "It is a settlement, Your Honor," she said quickly, "for the pain and suffering, for the years I lost, and to ensure I can get the treatment I need." The judge looked at me. His expression was unreadable, but I saw the distaste in the set of his jaw. He knew what this was. It was a transaction. It was a sale. But the law is a machine, and if the gears fit, it turns. "Mr. Vance," the judge said, addressing me, "do you agree to the terms of this contract? Are you prepared to pay this sum to the respondent in exchange for sole permanent custody of the minor child?" Courtney turned to look at me. Her eyes were wide, hungry. This was it. The moment she had been waiting for. She expected me to nod. She expected me to pay the ransom and let her walk away. She thought she had won. I stood up slowly. I buttoned my jacket. I felt the weight of the envelope in my inside pocket. It felt hot against my chest like a live coal. "Your Honor," I said, my voice filling the room deep and resonant. "I signed that document yesterday. That is my signature." Courtney let out a breath she had been holding. She smiled a small, victorious smirk. "However," I continued, and the smile froze on her face. "That document contains a specific clause, paragraph 14, section C. It states that the agreement is null and void if the receiving party is under active criminal investigation for acts committed against the estate or the grantor." The judge flipped through the pages. He found the clause. He read it. He looked up. "Is the respondent under criminal investigation, Mr. Vance. Yes, Your Honor, I said. As of this morning, warrants have been issued for Courtney Vance and her associate Chad regarding the break-in at my home 2 nights ago and conspiracy to commit fraud against my son's estate. The police are waiting outside these doors right now. Courtney gasped. She looked at the doors, then back at me. Her face went pale, the blood draining away so fast she looked like a wax statue. That is a lie, she shrieked. He is lying. He is trying to cheat me. I want my money. We had a deal. Sit down, the judge barked. She didn't sit. She was trembling, vibrating with rage and panic. He tricked me, she yelled, pointing a shaking finger at me. He made me sign it. He said he would pay. He owes me. That money belongs to my daughter, and I am her mother. I birthed her. I have rights. The judge banged his gavel. Order, he shouted. Mrs. Vance, if you do not sit down, I will hold you in contempt. She collapsed into her chair sobbing, but they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of a thief who realizes the vault is empty. Your Honor, I said, drawing the attention back to me. The contract is void. I will not be paying her $2 million. I will not be paying her 2 cents. But that is not the only reason I am standing here. I reached into my jacket. My hand brushed the textured paper of the envelope. It was old, yellowed with age, the corners bent. It had coffee stains on it from a morning 6 years ago when my son sat at my kitchen table crying into his hands. I have evidence. Your Honor, I said, evidence that changes the nature of this entire case. Evidence that proves this woman has no claim to my son's estate and never did. Courtney looked up. She saw the envelope. Her eyes narrowed. She didn't recognize it. Why would she? She had never cared enough about Trey to know his handwriting. She had never cared enough to look through his things. Mr. Sterling, the public defender, stood up. Objection, Your Honor. We have not entered any new evidence into discovery. This is a surprise ambush. This is a custody hearing, Counselor, the judge snapped. The court has wide discretion to hear evidence pertaining to the welfare of a child. Mr. Vance, what is that? I walked to the bench. The courtroom was silent. Even the air conditioner seemed to hold its breath. I could hear the rustle of my suit fabric. I could hear Courtney's ragged breathing. This envelope, I said, placing it gently on the judge's desk, was given to me by my son Trey 1 week before he died in the accident. He told me to open it only if Courtney ever returned. He told me to open it if she ever tried to take Maya away. And did you open it? The judge asked, his eyes fixed on the faded paper. I opened it 6 years ago, I said, the day she abandoned her daughter on my porch. I read it, and then I sealed it back up, because I hoped I would never have to use it. I hoped she would stay gone. But she came back, and she brought greed with her. Courtney was staring at the envelope. A flicker of unease crossed her face. She was trying to remember. Had she left something behind? Had she signed something she shouldn't have? Her mind was racing through her own lies, trying to find the crack in the armor. The judge picked up the envelope. He turned it over in his hands. He saw the seal. He saw the date written in Trey's shaky hand. May I, Your Honor? I asked. The judge nodded. I am not a lawyer, I said, looking back at Courtney. I am a builder. And when you build something, you have to make sure the materials are genuine. You have to make sure the steel is real steel and not cheap iron. Because if you build on a lie, the whole thing comes down. I turned back to the judge. Inside that envelope is a letter from my son, and attached to that letter is a medical document, a DNA test, dated 6 years and 2 months ago. DNA test. The words hung in the air. Courtney stopped breathing. Her mouth opened slightly. Her eyes went wide, huge saucers of absolute terror. She knew. In that split second, she knew exactly what was in that envelope. She knew the secret she had buried deep in her past, the secret she thought had died with Trey. She stood up slowly as if pulled by invisible strings. No, she whispered. No, you can't. The judge ignored her. He took a letter opener from his desk. The sound of the paper tearing was the loudest thing in the world. Rap. A sound of finality. A sound of a curtain being torn down. He pulled out the contents. A single sheet of lined notebook paper covered in Trey's handwriting and a stapled document with a medical logo on the top. The judge adjusted his glasses. He began to read. I watched his face. I saw the confusion first, then the shock. His eyebrows shot up. His mouth tightened into a thin line. He read the letter, then he flipped to the medical report. He scanned the numbers. He scanned the percentages. He looked at the conclusion at the bottom of the page. His face went pale. He looked up from the papers. He looked at me. There was a new respect in his eyes, but also a profound sadness. "Does she know?" the judge asked, his voice barely a whisper. He gestured toward Courtney, who was now standing in the aisle looking like she wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't work. "Does she know about this?" I turned to look at her. I looked at the woman who had tormented my son, the woman who had abandoned my granddaughter, the woman who had tried to destroy me for money. "Not yet, Your Honor," I said softly. "She thinks she is fighting for an inheritance. She doesn't know she never even had a ticket to the game." Courtney looked from me to the judge. Her arrogance was gone. Her greed was gone. All that was left was fear. "What is it?" she demanded, her voice cracking. "What is in there?" The judge looked at her. He held up the paper. "Mrs. Vance," he said, his voice hard as granite. "This is a paternity test conducted by LabCorp 6 years ago. The donor was Trey Vance. The subject was the infant Maya Vance." He paused, letting the silence stretch, letting the weight of the truth crush the air out of the room. "The results show a 0% probability of paternity." Courtney let out a sound like a wounded animal, a gasp that turned into a wail. "Trey is not Maya's father," the judge said. "And according to this letter, he knew. He knew you were having an affair. He knew the child wasn't his, and he loved her anyway. He was going to raise her until he died. And then you left her." The courtroom erupted. The public defender dropped his pen. The bailiff stepped forward. "That means," I said, my voice cutting through the noise, "that Courtney committed paternity fraud. It means she has no claim to the estate because the estate is for Trey's heirs. And Maya is not his heir by blood. She is his heir by choice. My choice." Courtney fell to her knees. It wasn't theatrical this time. Her legs just gave out. She was on the floor in her expensive dress, surrounded by the ruins of her lies. "No," she sobbed. "No, no, no." She looked up at me. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew the whole time." I looked down at her. I knew, I said, and I loved her anyway. "Because she is innocent. You are not." The judge banged the gavel, but nobody heard it. The truth was out. The bomb had detonated, and the only thing left standing in the wreckage was me and the little girl I was going to protect until my last breath. The words hung in the stale air of the courtroom like smoke from a gunshot. 0% probability. The judge lowered the document, but his eyes remained fixed on Courtney. She was standing there with her mouth slightly open, a look of absolute incomprehension plastered across her face. It was the look of a gambler who had bet the house on a rigged game and just watched the wheel stop on the wrong number. The silence was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. The only sound was the hum of the overhead lights and the frantic thumping of my own heart against my ribs. I had carried this secret for 6 years. I had watched my son wither under the weight of it. Now the burden was finally off my shoulders and squarely on hers. "That is a lie," Courtney whispered. Her voice was thin, reedy, barely audible. "That is a fake. You forged it. You and that old man cooked this up." The judge did not blink. He picked up the second page of the report. "Mrs. Vance, this test was conducted by a court-certified geneticist 6 years ago. The chain of custody is impeccable. The samples were verified. There is no error. Trey Vance was not the biological father of Maya Vance." Courtney shook her head violently, her blonde hair whipping around her face. "He signed the birth certificate." She shouted, her voice rising to a shriek. "He is the father on paper. That is all that matters. The law says he is the father. I want my money." She was desperate now, clawing at technicalities. She didn't care about the lie. She didn't care about the infidelity. She only cared about the $12 million slipping through her fingers. The judge looked at me, then back at Courtney. He picked up the handwritten letter that had been in the envelope. The paper was crinkled, stained with the tears of a man who had died with a broken heart. "It appears," the judge said, his voice heavy with gravity, "that your husband was fully aware of the situation, and he made provisions for exactly this moment." Courtney froze. She looked at the letter in the judge's hand as if it were a bomb. And in a way it was. It was a bomb my son had built to protect the daughter of his heart from the woman who gave her birth. "Read it," I said, my voice cutting through the tension. "Read what my son had to say about the wife who betrayed him." The judge adjusted his glasses. He began to read aloud, and Trey's voice seemed to fill the room, speaking from the grave. "To my father, Silas. The letter began. If you are reading this, it means Courtney has come back. It means she has come for Maya. You and I know the truth, Dad. I know she isn't mine. I found the texts. I saw the dates. I ran the test. I know she belongs to some guy she met at a bar while I was working double shifts. The judge paused, letting the words sink in. Courtney was trembling, her hands gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles were white. But Dad, the letter continued, it doesn't matter. From the moment I held that baby girl, she was mine. Biology is just chemistry. Being a father is a promise. I made a promise to Maya, and I am going to keep it. I am adopting her in my heart, and I am claiming her as my blood. But I cannot let Courtney destroy her. I cannot let her use Maya as a pawn. So I am writing this will. The judge set the letter down and picked up a legal document attached to the back. This is a testamentary trust, the judge explained, executed the same day as the letter. It explicitly states that Trey Vance acknowledges Maya as his legal heir despite lack of biological relation. However, it contains a forfeiture clause regarding his spouse. Courtney's head snapped up. What clause? She hissed. The judge looked her in the eye. It states that any inheritance rights of the spouse are contingent upon marital fidelity and the truthful disclosure of paternity. By concealing the true parentage of the child to induce marriage and financial support, you committed marital fraud, Mrs. Vance. Under the terms of this trust and the laws of this state, your claim to the estate is void ab initio, invalid from the beginning. Void. Courtney repeated the word, sounding foreign on her tongue. Furthermore, the judge continued relentlessly. The trust designates Silas Vance as the sole trustee and guardian of the estate with absolute discretion over all assets until Maya reaches the age of 25. The money does not go to the mother. It never goes to the mother. It goes to the child protected by the grandfather. It was the checkmate. Trey hadn't just left money, he had left a fortress. He had anticipated her greed. He had known that one day she would come back not for love but for profit, and he had ensured that she would leave with exactly what she deserved. Nothing. You can't do this, Courtney screamed. She lunged toward the bench, her hands clawing at the air. It is my money. I earned it. I put up with him. I lived in that dump. I deserve it. She wasn't crying for her lost husband. She wasn't crying for her lost child. She was crying for the yachts she wouldn't buy. She was crying for the life of leisure that had just evaporated like mist in the sun. The public defender put a hand on her arm, trying to restrain her, but she shook him off with the strength of a madwoman. Get off me, she yelled. You are all useless. This is a conspiracy. That old man is a thief. He stole my life. She turned toward me. Her eyes were wild, bloodshot, manic. The mask of the grieving mother was gone, completely incinerated by the heat of her rage. She looked at me, and she saw the architect of her destruction. She saw the man who had played the fool for 6 years just to lead her to this trap. You, she spat, stepping into the aisle. You think you won. You think you can take her from me. I stood up. I didn't back down. I didn't flinch. I looked at her with 40 years of concrete and steel in my spine. I didn't take her, Courtney, I said calmly. You threw her away. I just caught her before she hit the ground. That broke her. The truth was a physical blow. She let out a scream that wasn't human. It was a guttural roar of pure, unadulterated hatred. She launched herself at me. She flew across the aisle, her fingers curled into claws, reaching for my face. She wanted to hurt me. She wanted to tear me apart. She wanted to silence the witness to her shame. Bailiff the judge shouted, banging the gavel. I didn't move to strike her. I simply braced myself. I planted my feet. I am a structural engineer. I know how to withstand an impact. She collided with me, slamming against my chest. Her nails raked across my cheek, drawing blood. She was screaming, spitting, kicking. Give me the money, she shrieked. Give it to me. 2 bailiffs were on her in a second. They grabbed her arms, pulling her back. She struggled wildly, kicking out, landing a boot on my shin. But they were younger, stronger. They dragged her away from me, forcing her to the ground. Let me go, she screamed, thrashing against the carpet. I am the victim here. He is the villain. Handcuffs clicked. The sound was final, metallic, cold. Courtney Vance, you are in contempt of court, the judge bellowed, standing up. You are also under arrest for assault and battery in a court of law. The officers hauled her to her feet. Her dress was twisted. Her hair was a mess. Her face was purple with exertion. She looked at me one last time as they dragged her toward the side door, the door that led to the holding cells. I will kill you, she screamed. I will kill you, Silas. This isn't over. I touched the scratch on my cheek. I looked at the blood on my finger. It is over, Courtney, I said softly so only I could hear. It was over the day you left. The door slammed shut, cutting off her screams. The courtroom fell silent again. The public defender was packing his briefcase, looking like he wanted to disappear. The judge sat down, exhaling a long breath. He looked at me. He looked at the scratch on my face. "Mr. Vance, are you all right?" he asked. "I am fine." "Your Honor," I said. "Just a scratch." The judge nodded. He picked up his pen. He signed the order in front of him with a flourish. "Custody is granted to the grandfather, Silas Vance, effective immediately. The mother's rights are suspended pending criminal proceedings. The estate remains under the sole trusteeship of Mr. Vance." He looked at me over his glasses. "Go get your granddaughter, Mr. Vance. Take her home." "Thank you." "Your Honor," I said. I turned and walked out of the courtroom. My cheek was stinging. My shin was throbbing. But my heart was lighter than it had been in 6 years. The dragon was slain. The tower was secure. And somewhere in a state facility, a little girl was waiting for her grandpa to come and pick her up just like he promised. I walked out into the hallway where Caldwell was waiting. He saw the blood on my face and raised an eyebrow. "Did she take the news well?" he asked dryly. "About as well as expected," I said. "She is in custody." "Good," Caldwell said. "Then let's go. We have a pickup to make." We walked out of the courthouse into the bright Atlanta sun. The storm was over. The air was fresh. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the taste of victory. It didn't taste like revenge. It tasted like peace. It tasted like justice. It tasted like going home. They say a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. Courtney proved that adage right 24 hours after the bailiff dragged her out of the courtroom. Her father, a man I had never met but who apparently had deep pockets and shallow morals, posted her bail. She walked out of the county jail not with her head down in shame, but with her chin up looking for a camera. And she found plenty. I was sitting in my kitchen the morning after the hearing, drinking coffee that tasted like battery acid. The television was on low. I watched as Courtney stood on the steps of the precinct flanked by Chad, who had resurfaced like a cockroach after the lights go out. He was wearing a fresh suit and a look of righteous indignation. They weren't hiding. They were launching a counteroffensive. "This is a miscarriage of justice," Courtney sobbed into a cluster of microphones. "That man, Silas Vance, is a predator. He forged those DNA documents. He paid off a corrupt lab technician. My husband was the father of my child. I have never been unfaithful. It was a bold lie, but I expected it. Liars always double down when they are caught." But then she went further. She crossed a line that shouldn't even exist. She looked directly into the lens, her eyes wide and fearful, and she dropped the bomb. "There is a reason I kept my daughter away from him," she whispered, her voice trembling with a rehearsed terror. "There is a reason I ran. Silas Vance has an unnatural interest in children. I found pictures. I found things in his house 6 years ago. I left to protect her innocence, and now the court has handed my baby back to a monster." My coffee cup shattered on the floor. I didn't even feel it slip from my fingers. I sat there frozen while the ticker at the bottom of the screen read, "Grandfather accused of abuse, DNA fraud." She had gone nuclear. She knew she couldn't win on the facts, so she was trying to destroy me with the one accusation you can never fully wash off. She was weaponizing the protection of children to cover her own crimes. My phone started ringing immediately. Death threats, hate mail, people shouting that they were going to come to my house and finish what the law wouldn't. The internet, which had been quiet since the trial, suddenly roared back to life. The hashtags changed. Justice for Courtney began to trend. People I had known for 30 years, neighbors I had helped build fences with, looked at my house with suspicion as they drove by. Caldwell called me. His voice was tight. "Silas." "We have a problem," he said. "The court of public opinion doesn't care about evidence. They care about the most shocking story. And she just gave them a horror movie. We need to issue a statement. We need to deny this." "No," I said, my voice cold and hard. "We are not issuing a statement. Statements are for politicians and guilty men. We are not going to argue with her, Caldwell. We are going to end her." I hung up. I didn't clean up the coffee. I didn't sweep up the ceramic shards. I walked to my study. I sat down at my computer. I opened the folder I had named The Truth. Inside were the files I had been saving. The files I had hoped I wouldn't have to use publicly because they were ugly. They were raw. But Courtney had taken the gloves off. She wanted a street fight. I was going to give her a war. I logged into the same streaming platform I had used before. I didn't turn on my camera. I didn't want them to see my face. I wanted them to hear her voice. I titled the stream "The Price of a Child." I hit broadcast. The viewer count jumped instantly, 5,000. 10,000. They were tuning in to see the monster. They were tuning in to hate me. I spoke into the microphone, my voice steady, deep, and devoid of anger. "My name is Silas Vance," I said. "You have heard the accusations. You have heard the lies. Now you are going to hear the truth. Not from me, but from the woman who claims to be a victim." I clicked on the first file. It was the audio recording from Le Bernardin. The restaurant was quiet in the background, the clinking of expensive silverware audible. Then Courtney's voice cut through the speakers, clear and sharp. "She is a golden goose, Silas. That is what she is. She is the key to the vault. And once I have that money, I don't care if she goes to boarding school in Switzerland or Timbuktu. I am going to live the life I deserve. I let it play. I let her say the words. I let the world hear her call her own daughter a brat. I let them hear her admit that she didn't care about Trey, that he was just a fool she tolerated." Then I clicked on the second file. The video from my basement. The two thugs, snot-nosed and crying, covered in red pepper dust, looking up at the camera. "Who sent you?" I asked in the recording. "It was a lawyer," the thug sobbed. "A guy named Chad. He said if the old man gets in the way, put him down. He said nobody cares about a dead construction worker." I paused the stream for a moment, letting that sink in. Conspiracy to commit murder. A hit job ordered by the man standing next to her on the police station steps. Finally, I opened the third file. It was a high-resolution scan of the contract she had signed 2 days ago. The relinquishment of parental rights. I zoomed in on the paragraph that mattered. The price tag. $2 million. "This is the document Courtney Vance signed 48 hours ago," I said, my voice ringing with finality. "She didn't sign it to save her daughter from an abuser. She signed it to sell her daughter to the man she now claims is a monster. She put a price on her child's head. $2 million. She signed it. She took the copy. She walked away thinking the money was on its way. If I am a danger to that child, why did she agree to sell her to me for cash?" I hit stop. I uploaded the files to a public server. I posted the link. "Judge for yourselves," I said. Then I turned off the computer. I sat back in my chair. The silence returned to the room, but outside the digital world was exploding. It wasn't a ripple, it was a tsunami. The internet is a fickle beast. It loves a villain, but it hates a hypocrite more. I watched on my phone as the tide turned. It took less than 10 minutes. The hashtags shifted. Save Maya replaced justice for Courtney. The comments on her video, which had been supportive moments ago, turned vicious. "She sold her kid. Did you hear that audio? She is a monster. Arrest her." The news outlets picked it up immediately. They played the audio clips. They showed the contract. The narrative of the grieving mother crumbled into dust, leaving behind the naked image of a greedy sociopath. But the real blow came an hour later. I was standing on my porch watching the storm clouds gather again when a convoy of police cars screamed down the street. They didn't stop at my house. They kept going. They were headed for the apartment complex 3 streets over. The luxury condos where Chad lived. The place where Courtney was hiding. I turned on the police scanner app on my phone. Suspect located code 6 at the Meridian Apartments. The dispatcher's voice crackled. Male suspect is attempting to flee out the back. That would be Chad. The coward. The lawyer who thought he could buy muscle and intimidate an old man. I got in my truck. I didn't go close. I parked a block away, just close enough to see the lights. A crowd had gathered. Neighbors were filming with their phones. I saw the side door of the building burst open. Chad came running out carrying a duffel bag, his expensive suit jacket flapping in the wind. He looked terrified. He looked like a rat abandoning a sinking ship. He made it 10 yards before a police cruiser hopped the curb and cut him off. 2 officers tackled him. I watched as they slammed him into the hood of the car. I watched as the handcuffs clicked into place. I watched as they dragged him toward the back seat, kicking and screaming about his rights, about entrapment, about how it wasn't his fault. But there was no sign of Courtney. I scanned the windows of the building. I scanned the crowd. She wasn't there. Chad had run, but Courtney had vanished. She was smarter than him, or maybe just more desperate. She knew the moment that stream went live that her life was over. She knew the contract was a confession. She knew the audio was a nail in her coffin. She had run, again, just like she ran 6 years ago. I drove back home. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. I had won the battle of public opinion. I had exposed the truth. But the war wasn't over until she was in cuffs. I walked into my house. The phone was ringing. It was Caldwell. "Did you see it?" he asked. "I saw Chad," I said. "Courtney is gone." "She won't get far," Caldwell said. "Her face is on every screen in America right now. Her accounts are frozen. She has no money, Silas. She has no friends. Chad turned on her the minute they put him in the car. He is singing like a canary. He told them everything. The forgery, the break-in, the plan to accuse you of abuse. It is all over for them. It is not over until she is caught," I said. "She will be," Caldwell promised. "She is a woman who needs luxury to survive. She can't live on the run. She will break. She will reach out. And when she does, we will be ready." I hung up. I looked at the empty spot on the floor where Maya used to play with her blocks. I missed her. I missed her laugh. I missed the way she smelled like strawberry shampoo. She was still in the system, safe but alone. I had to finish this. I had to make the world safe for her again. Courtney was out there somewhere in the dark, cold, alone, penniless. She was experiencing for the first time in her life what it felt like to be truly powerless. She thought she was the predator. She thought she was the wolf, but now she was the rabbit and the whole world was the hound. I sat in my chair and waited. I knew she would call. She had no one else. She had burned every bridge, and the only person left who might pick up the phone was the man she had tried to destroy. "Come on, Courtney," I whispered to the shadows. "Make the call." The phone rang at 3:14 in the morning. It was a harsh, jarring sound that sliced through the darkness of my living room like a serrated knife. I wasn't asleep. I was sitting in my armchair, staring at the empty fireplace with a glass of bourbon in my hand that I hadn't taken a sip of in 2 hours. I knew this call was coming. I had felt it in my bones like the ache that predicts rain. A creature like Courtney doesn't go down silently. She doesn't accept defeat with dignity. When the walls close in, she reaches out to drag someone else down with her. I picked up the phone. The screen glowed with an unknown number. No caller ID, just a digital ghost trying to haunt me one last time. I pressed the answer button and held the device to my ear. I didn't say anything. I just listened. At first, there was only the sound of ragged breathing. It sounded wet and panicked like a deer that has run until its heart is about to burst. "Silas." Her voice was a whisper, a broken shard of the arrogant tone she had used in the courtroom. It was trembling so hard the syllables barely held together. "Silas, are you there? Please, pick up." "I am here, Courtney," I said. My voice was calm, dangerously steady. I sounded like the eye of the storm while she was the hurricane tearing itself apart. "Oh God, Silas, you have to help me." She was sobbing now, ugly, desperate sounds that clawed at my ear. "They are everywhere, Silas. The police. They are at the apartment. They are at the bank. Chad left me. He took the bag. He took the emergency cash and he left me at a gas station. He stole the car, Silas. He left me with nothing." I took a slow breath. I imagined Chad running like the coward he was, realizing that loyalty has a price tag he couldn't afford. "Where are you, Courtney?" I asked. "I am at a motel off I-20, the Starlight. It is dirty, Silas. The door doesn't lock. I can hear sirens. I think they are looking for me. You have to come get me. Please, I will sign anything. I will tell them whatever you want. Just come get me. Bring some money. We can fix this." She was still trying to use that word. As if there was any universe where she and I were on the same side. She was invoking a bond she had severed with a butcher knife 6 years ago. "There is no we, Courtney," I said. "There is you, and there is the consequences of your actions." No, don't say that," she pleaded, her voice rising in pitch. "I am family. I am Maya's mother. You can't let them take me to prison. I am not built for prison, Silas. I am scared." "You should have been scared when you left a 7-year-old girl alone in a hotel room," I said. "You should have been scared when you hired thugs to break into my home. You should have been scared when you forged my signature. But you weren't scared then, were you? You were arrogant. You thought you were untouchable because you were white and pretty, and I was just an old black man with a pension." "I was wrong," she cried. "I know I was wrong. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Just save me. You are a good man, Silas. Trey always said you were the best man he knew. Do it for Trey." My hand tightened around the glass of bourbon. I felt the urge to throw it against the wall to let the rage finally explode. How dare she use his name? How dare she invoke the memory of the son she had betrayed to save her own skin? "Do not say his name," I said, my voice dropping to a low rumble that vibrated in my chest. "You lost the right to speak his name when you lied to him about his daughter. You lost it when you cheated on him while he was breaking his back to put a roof over your head. You think I don't know. You think Trey didn't know. He knew she whispered the fight draining out of her. He knew everything I said. He knew about the affairs. He knew about the DNA. And he loved that little girl anyway. He was 10 times the parent you will ever be. And you repaid him by trying to sell his legacy for a plane ticket." I tapped the screen of my laptop, which was sitting open on the coffee table. The tracing program Caldwell had installed was running a red dot pulsing on a map of the city outskirts. It had locked onto her signal. The Starlight Motel, room 12. I hit send, forwarding the coordinates to the detective I had been texting with for the last 10 minutes. "Keep her on the line," the detective had typed. "We are 2 minutes out." "Silas, please," she begged. "I have no one. My parents won't answer. My friends blocked me. You are the only one left." "Think about why that is, Courtney," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Think about the trail of wreckage you have left behind you. You use people. You drain them dry and then you discard them. You did it to Trey. You did it to Maya. You tried to do it to me. And now you are surprised that you are alone in the dark. I can change," she sobbed. "I can be better. Just give me a chance." "You had 6 years of chances," I said. "You had every day that you woke up and decided not to call your daughter. You had a chance when you walked onto my porch 3 days ago. You could have come for love. You came for money. You had a chance in that courtroom. You chose violence. You are out of chances, Courtney. The bank is closed." I heard a sound in the background on her end. A car door slamming, the crunch of gravel under heavy boots. She heard it too. She stopped crying. She held her breath. "What was that?" she whispered, terror sharpening her voice. "Silas, did you call them?" I didn't answer. "I didn't have to. You called them," she screamed, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. "You set me up, you traitor. You are supposed to be a Christian. You are supposed to forgive. I am a father first," I said, "and a grandfather. And my job is to protect my flock from the wolves, even if the wolf is crying." "I hate you," she shrieked. "I hope you rot. I hope you die alone in that miserable house." "I won't be alone," I said calmly. "I will have Maya, and we will have peace. Something you will never understand." The sound of the door crashing in came through the phone speaker, loud and distorted. It was a boom followed by the splintering of cheap wood. "Police search warrant, show me your hands," a voice bellowed. Courtney screamed. It wasn't a scream of anger anymore. It was the scream of a creature being dragged into the light. "No, get away from me," she yelled. "I didn't do anything. It was all him. It was the lawyer. He made me do it." "Get on the ground," the officer shouted. "Do it now." I heard the scuffle, the sound of a phone hitting the floor but not hanging up. I heard the rustle of fabric, the thud of a body hitting the carpet. "You are hurting me," she cried. "Silas, help me. Tell them." I sat there in my living room holding the phone to my ear, listening to the end of her life. I listened as they cuffed her. I listened as they read her rights. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you." She was still screaming my name when they dragged her out of the room. She was cursing me, begging me, bargaining with a universe she thought she could cheat. "Silas, please." The voice faded. Someone picked up the phone. "Mr. Vance." It was Detective Johnson. "I am here, detective," I said. "We have her," he said. "She is in custody. It is over." "Thank you," I said. "You did good, Silas," he said. "Get some sleep. We will take it from here." I lowered the phone from my ear. I looked at the screen. Call ended. I placed the phone on the table. The house was quiet again. But it wasn't the heavy, oppressive silence of before. It was a clean silence. A silence that felt like the air after a thunderstorm when the ozone is fresh and the world has been washed clean. I picked up the glass of bourbon. The ice had melted, watering it down, but I didn't mind. I raised it in a toast to the empty room. "To you, Trey," I whispered, "and to Maya. You are safe now." I drank it in one swallow. The burn was good. It felt like closure. I stood up and walked to the window. The rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking and a sliver of moon was shining through. Courtney was in the back of a squad car right now, watching her future disappear through a metal grate. She would never hurt us again. She would never sell my granddaughter. She would never threaten my home. I turned off the lamp. I walked down the hall to my bedroom. I passed Maya's room. The door was open. Her bed was empty, but not for long. Tomorrow I would bring her home. Tomorrow we would start rebuilding. I laid down on my bed, and for the first time in 6 years, I closed my eyes, and I didn't see monsters. I saw bridges, strong, unbreakable bridges leading to a future that finally belonged to us. The fluorescent lights of the Department of Family and Children Services buzzed with a low, annoying hum that reminded me of a failing transformer. I sat on a plastic chair, my hands resting on my knees, waiting. It had been 48 hours since the police raid on the hotel. 48 hours of paperwork, of background checks, of proving that a 69-year-old man was fit to raise a child. But finally the door opened. A caseworker walked out holding a small hand. Maya looked tired. Her clothes were wrinkled and she was clutching a stuffed bear I had never seen before, probably a donation from the center. But when she saw me, her eyes lit up like the lights on the Bay Bridge. "Grandpa," she shouted. She broke free from the caseworker and ran. She hit me with the force of a linebacker, burying her face in my chest. I wrapped my arms around her, feeling her small heart beating against mine. I closed my eyes and breathed in the scent of her hair. It smelled of cheap institutional soap, but under that, it smelled of home. "Let's go home, baby girl," I whispered. We walked out to the truck. I buckled her into her booster seat. The drive was quiet at first. I didn't turn on the radio. I wanted her to know that she had my full attention. We pulled into the driveway. The window was fixed. The pepper dust was gone. The house looked like it always had, sturdy and welcoming. We sat on the front porch steps, just watching the neighborhood. It was time for the conversation I had been dreading, but knew was necessary. "Grandpa," she asked, looking at her sneakers. "Where is she?" She didn't say mommy. She just said she. "She is in a place where she can't hurt anyone anymore," I said carefully. "She is in a timeout, a very long one." "Is she coming back?" she asked. "No," I said. "She is not." Maya was quiet for a long time. I watched her face, terrified that I would see sadness or longing. But instead I saw her shoulders drop. I saw a tension leave her small body that I hadn't realized she was carrying. "Good," she said softly. I looked at her, surprised. "Good?" I asked. "She was mean, Grandpa," she said, looking up at me with clear, honest eyes. She smelled like sour juice, and she squeezed my arm too hard. She said I was a mistake. "I don't want to be a mistake." "You are not a mistake," I said, my voice fierce. "You are the best thing that ever happened to this family. You are a Vance, and we build things. We don't break them." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I choose you," she said. "I pick you to be my family." I kissed the top of her head, fighting back tears. "I pick you too, kid. I pick you too." That night, after I tucked her in and read her 3 stories, I went down to the kitchen. Caldwell was sitting at the table, a bottle of expensive scotch between us. We had one last piece of business to conclude. The matter of the $12 million. "Everyone thinks Trey got lucky," Caldwell said, pouring 2 glasses. "They think he was a construction worker who stumbled into a Bitcoin fortune or picked a tech stock out of a hat. That is the narrative the news is running with. The lucky blue-collar millionaire." I took a sip of the scotch. It burned pleasantly. "Let them think that," I said. "It keeps the vultures away." "But we know the truth, don't we, Silas?" Caldwell said, smiling. I walked over to the bookshelf and pulled down a thick binder. It wasn't full of legal briefs. It was full of schematics, blueprints, and market analysis reports. I opened it to a page dated 10 years ago. It was a structural analysis of the digital infrastructure market. "I was a structural engineer, Caldwell," I said, tapping the page. "I spent 40 years looking at blueprints. I know how to spot a load-bearing wall, and I know how to spot a weak foundation. But more importantly, I know how to spot the next bridge." I turned the page. It showed detailed notes in my handwriting analyzing the architecture of blockchain technology and emerging tech sectors. "Trey didn't pick those stocks," I said. "I did." Caldwell nodded. "I remember. You came to me. You said the world was changing. You said the new bridges weren't going to be made of steel and concrete. They were going to be made of code. Trey had the heart," I said. "But he didn't have the head for numbers. He wanted to spend his paycheck on trucks and parties, so I made him a deal. I told him to give me 20% of every paycheck. I told him I would build him a safety net." I looked at the ledger. Those initial investments made with sweat equity and a keen eye for structural integrity had grown into the empire Courtney had tried to steal. She thought she was stealing Trey's luck, I said. She didn't know she was trying to steal my work. I built that fortune Caldwell, brick by digital brick. I saw the future, and I laid the foundation. Trey just held the deed because I wanted him to feel like a man. I wanted him to have something to leave behind. And now it belongs to Maya, Caldwell said. It does, I agreed, but not yet. I slid a new document across the table. It was the trust agreement I had drafted. $12 million ruins a person who isn't ready for it, I said. Look at Courtney. It turned her into a monster. I won't let that happen to Maya. Caldwell read the terms. Full access at 30, he read. Educational expenses covered, stipends for travel and charity, but no lump sums until she proves she can build something of her own. Exactly, I said. She has to work. She has to learn the value of a dollar. She has to learn that wealth isn't a winning lottery ticket. It is a tool. If she wants to be rich, she has to be useful. She has to contribute. You are a hard man, Silas Caldwell said, closing the folder. I am a builder, I corrected him. And you don't build a skyscraper on a swamp. You dig down to the bedrock first. The next morning was Sunday. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and the world felt lighter. I woke Maya up early. Put on your nice dress, I said. We are going to visit your dad. We drove to the cemetery on the outskirts of town. It was a quiet place, shaded by old oak trees. We walked hand in hand to the plot where Trey was buried. The headstone was simple granite, solid and enduring. Maya had a bouquet of wildflowers she had picked from the garden. She placed them gently on the grass. Hi, Daddy, she said. I knelt beside her. I traced the letters of my son's name. We did it, son, I whispered. We saved her. The wolf is gone. I looked at Maya. She was tracing the date on the stone with her small finger. She didn't look sad. She looked curious. Grandpa, she asked, is he really my daddy? I thought about the DNA test. I thought about the biology. I thought about the lie Courtney had told. And then I looked at the letter Trey had written, the letter where he claimed her as his own, regardless of blood. He is your father, Maya, I said firmly. He chose you. He loved you. He held you when you were a baby, and he promised to keep you safe. That makes him your father more than any biology ever could. She nodded, satisfied with the answer. I miss him, she said. I know, baby, I said. I miss him too, but he left us something. The money, she asked, innocent and unaware of the magnitude. No, I said. Not the money. He left us the truth, and he left us each other. I stood up and brushed the grass from my knees. I looked around the cemetery. I saw other families visiting graves. I saw people grieving. But I also saw love. I saw connection. You know, Maya, I said, taking her hand. People think family is about who you look like. They think it is about having the same last name or the same nose. She looked up at me, squinting in the sun. What is it about then, she asked. I squeezed her hand, and she squeezed back tight and strong. Blood makes you related, I said, looking at the grave one last time. But loyalty makes you family. Loyalty is showing up. Loyalty is staying when it gets hard. Loyalty is protecting the people you love even when the whole world is against you. Your mother had blood, but she didn't have loyalty. Your daddy and I, we have loyalty, and that is why we are still standing. We walked back to the truck, leaving the shadows of the past behind us among the headstones. We had a future to build. We had homework to do. We had bridges to cross. As I started the engine, Maya looked at me and smiled. Can we get ice cream, she asked. I laughed, a genuine sound that rumbled in my chest. Yes, baby girl, I said. We can get all the ice cream you want. I put the truck in gear and drove out of the cemetery. The road ahead was clear. The foundation was solid. And for the first time in a long time, I knew that whatever storms came next, we would weather them together. Because we were Vances, and Vances don't break. We build. The strongest foundations in this life are not made of concrete or steel, but of integrity. Courtney believed that family was defined by DNA and that a child was simply an asset to be leveraged. She was wrong. True family isn't about whose blood runs in your veins. It is about who stands beside you when the storm breaks. It is about the choice to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Never mistake silence for weakness, and never underestimate the resolve of a man protecting his own. When you build a life on lies, it will inevitably collapse. But when you build on loyalty and love, you build something that lasts forever. If you believe that family is defined by love and action rather than just biology, hit that like button and share this story. And tell me in the comments, would you have forgiven Courtney, or did she get exactly what she deserved? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice served cold. Until next time.